Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to our April 15th special workshop of the Murrieta City Council is now called to order. Madam City Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I may call roll, Councilmember DeForest.
Here.
Councilmember Stone.
Here.
Councilmember Holliday.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lavelle. Mayor Warren.
Here.
Let the record reflect that all members are present with the exception of Mayor Pro Tem Lavelle.
Thank you very much. We're going to move forward with our workshop, a presentation from staff on the growing negative impact of state housing laws that are stripping away local control from the city of Murrieta and cities across the state and foreseeing the approval of unwanted high-density housing. Staff, may we please have your presentation?
Thank you, Mayor, and good afternoon, council members. So the staff recommendation for this presentation is that you receive the presentation from staff, accept public testimony, and provide further direction to staff if needed. So just by way of introduction, I'm David Chantarangsu. I'm the Development Services Director. And then with me to my left is Jarrett Ramaya, who's the Deputy Director of Development Services, and also Carl Steele, who is the City Planner, and will each be providing information for the City Council to consider for this workshop. So as you recall, at your February 10th goal setting workshop, one of the council priorities was to provide a format for the council and residents to discuss changes in California's multifamily housing building laws and affordable housing. So this is likely not the only opportunity that the council and residents will have to make comment about this topic. So just by way of background, in recent years, California has implemented a series of changes to state housing law, which has been, as you noted, Madam Mayor, stripping away local authority, making it extremely difficult, if not impossible, for cities to disapprove multifamily housing and essentially what was once a local decision-making process guided by thoughtful planning, resident input, and long-term vision is now governed by mandates that prioritize housing quantity over neighborhood quality, infrastructure readiness, and community values. So just to give you an example of some of the issues that you'll hear about in more detail, one such state-imposed housing mandate penalizes cities for not complying with what's known as the Housing Accountability Act. So cities face up to a $50,000 per unit fine if they improperly deny any housing development, in addition to other egregious sanctions. Sorry, I'm just switching my page here. So not only is the state enacting fines, but they're significantly changing the process under which that we used to previously approve projects. One such example is the enactment of Senate Bill SB 743, which was implemented in 2018. One of the issues that residents and council members are typically concerned with new housing development is traffic congestion. And so the state's answer to dealing with that particular approach is to basically eliminate that from being considered a negative significant impact under state environmental laws, which is known as the California Environmental Quality Act. And so where that's kind of left us is that, residential neighborhoods that have been carefully planned and built over generations are being reshaped by top-down policies given to us from Sacramento with little to no room for local discretion or community voice. Just by way of to give you some sense of the gravity of what we've been dealing with at the staff level. So since about 2018, it's been reported that roughly 90 housing bills have been passed by the state to create a systematic approach to stripping away local land use. For the current legislative cycle, my staff is reviewing over 300 bills that affect local control, and roughly about 160 of those are related to housing. So it gives you an idea of how little regard the state has for what cities have traditionally been tasked to do to govern themselves. So with that, that's just kind of a preamble. I'll also provide some closing comments, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Maya.
Thank you, David. Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. Welcome, John Lavelle. You know, if we go back to the birth of our city in 1991, we had about 24,000 people. They lived in about 8,000 units, and we've grown about 5 times since then. So today we have almost 39,000 units with a population of 118,000. So how did we get here? The legislature identified that there was a delta or gap in the amount of units statewide. And so folks like Senator Skinner, the author of SB 330, went out and actually sought the advice of developers. You know, how can the state help you? What are the things that prevent you from going vertical? And that was part and parcel of how much they've been actively doing. They've been passing quite a lot of law in the last 5 years. And a lot of that has been based upon sticking to a standard. So if your jurisdiction has a standard, like an objective design standard, that's good for you. But if you don't have that, you can't really point at something to a developer to adhere to. And the curious thing is that we've hit a plateau with our population numbers. And so although we're not seeing a significant increase in population in the forecast, leveling off, that housing laws continue to go. If you look at the last 45 years, back in our Riverside County days to now Murrieta, you're gonna see some boom periods. We did have a lot of single family and other development between 2000 and 2009. That was a big chunk of that that you can see in yellow. Recently, post-Great Recession, you're seeing us adhere to about a 14.3% in unit numbers. Currently, we have about 2,000 units in process. Half of those are single family, the other half are multifamily. We have a lot entitled, 4,700. Some of that is single family, but a majority is multifamily. And under construction, if you drive around town, you see about 1,956 units of multifamily being constructed as we speak. And so the Housing Accountability Act, this is our legislature limiting our control as a city. They've been doing that by making it very difficult for us to, in the past, we had a lot of discretion. They've removed that. And so if we don't have something to point to in our development code, we can't ask for that and we can't push back. And I think that's the difficult thing is that, you know, you directed Carl Steele and our team to bring back objective design guidelines. That was a big work pill, a lot of cost. We got that to you, and that's protecting our city, but that's an example of that's all you got as a local jurisdiction. You have to be really careful to have it adopted and in place prior to that project coming in for a pre-app. That's how early on the state has identified this. And if we're not careful, they have created their own HCD task force. They have created a fine structure, as David spoke about, and those are significant because we're trying to pay for streets and schools. And these types of figures that they're quoting are quite significant to us. So again, the state is limiting our ability. What was surprising was a few years ago, they retroactively told us that back in 2018, we're gonna lock you in. So think about that, they rolled us back in time. Again, they require a pre-app process. So when an applicant comes in, staff only have 30 days to pen a letter. That letter shall describe every single condition of approval that would be required and every single fee that the developer would go into. If you don't do that, if you don't issue a very carefully written letter, the developer can come in with their project and say, well, you missed that, I don't have to do it. And those are the types of, I think, unfair changes that have occurred that have caught staff off guard. And again, I think it's the penalty of a time frame. The applicants get 90 days, we only get 30. And I think you've seen it where we've come with our PowerPoints on projects where we said, gosh, this is hearing number 3, we can't go too much further. They've limited us to no more than 5 hearings. That doesn't just mean public hearings. It could be a community planning group meeting or a workshop. There's a math where you have to be really, really careful on how you bring those forward. Like I said, when you do share what the fee structure is in your pre-app letter, that's the fee at the time. And if the applicant comes in and builds that development within 2.5 years of approval, they lock into that old fee structure. And so you're no longer able to promote the current fee structure as we did in the past. It's more locked in there. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Carl Steele.
All right, so I'll take you through a few more. So on the changes in your density with actions that the city does, they've placed limits on us on how much we can do with our city actions. So for example, sometimes in the past, a project might come before, the planning commission or city council, and you might downzone part of the project, carve out part of the project, and you might lose some units. In the past, you could do that. You can't do that now with these state laws that they've passed. We can't approve a project with less density than what's the minimum provided in the general plan and zoning without specific findings. And typically, the only way to get around that now is what they put in state laws. You have to create this process where you move density between properties, which can be really complicated. It's worth mentioning that these laws have also locked in the housing sites from the housing cycle. So in the past, for example, if you met your housing requirements under state law, you might be able to take a housing site out and propose something else. The new laws have locked in the housing sites throughout, regardless of whether or not you meet the housing targets, which makes it tough on us as well to allow development. And then anytime, just a reminder that even if we looked at that and we were looking at doing a general plan amendment to our housing element, it was a 4-year process with HCD to get through the last housing element update. So it's probably going to be a similar lengthy process if we try to change any of our housing sites. A few more to mention. There's a number of bills where the state created streamlined processes for certain types of projects, primarily multifamily. These bills are all really similar. They have similar aspects. There's reduced review times. If the city doesn't meet them, the project's approved anyway. There's streamlined reviews that take away our discretionary authority, so our ability to have something like a hearing at the Planning Commission, the bills take that away. Staff just have to review them against existing standards. And even if there are hearings, sometimes they're very limited, if any. So another one worth mentioning is SB 8 also extended SB 330, which Jared was talking about. And that recently opened it up so it not only applies to discretionary projects approvals, but now it applies to ministerial projects. So just building permits are required to be approved in a certain amount of time. And if staff doesn't approve the building permits in a certain amount of time, they're deemed approved and people can go start building. That's in the new SB 8. The state continues to ramp up requiring cities and counties to issue building permits faster with mandated review times. Another one which kind of ties in with the next one is SB 9, which I think folks might have heard about and thought, oh, this is pretty innocuous. It allows for someone to take an existing lot and do a lot split without having to do a parcel map. And it's no longer discretionary, so there's no public hearing. You can just split a lot using the SB 9 process. There's no environmental review. And there's limited improvements that can go with it, like frontage improvements, things like that we typically can't require on these. But what that really relates to is the state's passed a bunch of bills related to accessory dwelling units. So people may have seen these, there's been a lot of discussion of this in the media. So you can have, we thought what the state was doing, I guess as staff, maybe naively, that it was, you could have one ADU with your residents. HCD clarified last year statewide that their intent is that you can have 4 per single family lot. So you can have your main residence, you can have a detached ADU, you can have an attached ADU, and you can have what they call a junior ADU. So if you take this all together, and the state legislature has basically said that this was always their intent, you can take a single family lot, you can split it in half without a public hearing, and you can build 4 units on each lot. So single family lots can be now 8 units by right without any discretionary project review. So that's just something for folks to be aware of. That's always been the state's intent, so they say at this point, but it took a number of years for them to pass all those bills. So another one David talked about, I'll just briefly touch on, SB 743 essentially changed the way we look at traffic with projects. We used to look at it in a way of looking at delay, what's the delay on the road, what we call level of service. The state's changed that. That's no longer considered an environmental impact under state law. So in theory, projects that have less traffic impacts using the new metric called VMT is if the project's near existing infrastructure. So if it's near public transportation, for example. So what else has the state been doing? Those are all the bills. That's the tip of the iceberg, kind of. There's a number of other bills they've done. But they've essentially taken away our local control, as David was talking about. And then while that's been going on, HCD's been asking for more power. It's been pretty obvious with some of the discussions we've seen with the state. And so they've passed a number of bills to do that. And now we're seeing it ramp up. They've increased funding. HCD has this new task force that's reviewing projects. The state started to interfere in projects. If you go to our website related to this workshop, you can go to the HCD's website. HCD posts all these cities that they're going after where they're interfering in projects. They've got the letters posted on the site. You can read them. They threaten legal action, and they put pressure on cities and counties to approve projects. And we've had HCD get involved on a couple of projects in the city and reach out to us, and we try to work with them as best we can, but it can become a difficult situation at that point when they try to step in. And then it can get worse from there, and we'll talk a little bit about that towards the end. So what have we been doing as staff? I think council knows this, but for the public, we got our housing element done. There was a lot of work that went into that. Like I said, it was 4 years. I'm proud to say we didn't do any rezones or upzones with the housing element. There's not a lot of cities and counties around here that can say that. We also avoided the builder's remedy scenario, which for folks who don't know what that is, if you Google Beverly Hills builder's remedy, you'll see some horror stories. It's essentially, if you don't get your housing element done in time, then the state law is all that applies, and you can have single-family sites become 19-story apartment buildings, which is mind-boggling. We also did our best to get the objective standards adopted in a timely manner so that we would have good standards for projects that do come to the city, especially the scenarios with those ministerial reviews where we aren't going to have any public hearings. We want to make sure we do the best to make sure we get good projects. So we've got that in place as well. And then lastly, I would just say there's a number of penalties out there that the state's starting to load into things. So we really have to be careful about what we do. Jared talked about the Housing Accountability Act. Also SB 35 has penalties, and what essentially it amounts to is if we try to do things where we don't process housing projects and the state sort of catches us or comes after us, they can ratchet up on forcing us to approve projects faster and with less review, which is what is in a number of bills. There's also another one to be aware of is SB 375, which instead of having an 8-year housing cycle, we would have to do a housing element every 4 years. So if the state decides they want to apply that to you, that's a nightmare. Having to do a housing element every 4 years you would have staff that would just spend time on that all the time. They also come after you and threaten limited access to state funding. And another one, a big one to mention, is just that the Attorney General has been going after cities with potential lawsuits. If you look out there, you can find the ones he's gone after more recently. That's kind of the horror stories that you hear, but we really don't want that to happen, but that's the kind of thing you read about. So with that, I'll pass it back over to David.
Thank you, Carl. So just to give the council an overview of where we're at. So we're roughly halfway through the current housing element cycle, which covers 2021 to 2029. And we anticipate that the next housing cycle will probably, or at least the work to come up with the housing element is probably going to start somewhere around 2028, maybe even 2027. One of the things that we're not included in the slides, but is important to note. So for the first time, the state is going to be taking over the RENA process. Before, it was a locally driven process, which started with our regional planning agency known as SCAG, or the Southern California Association of Governments. SCAG would go through this iterative process with the cities and the county to try and figure out a plan to distribute the RENA, or our required housing for our housing element plan. The state is going to take that over. They have the legislative authority to do that, and so we're not sure, really what to expect. And so it's why we've been a little bit gun shy, to be honest with you, about entertaining requests for changes in zoning and general plan, housing, just because we don't know what the next RENA cycle is going to look like. One last thing, and it was kind of a late add to the slide deck. One other piece of legislation, AB 1413, that was legislation that became effective last year, and that bill was aimed at eliminating CEQA challenges or environmental challenges to housing projects. So if a city improperly used CEQA to try to deny or delay even housing projects, it would be subject to the Housing Accountability Act and the $10,000 or $50,000 per unit fine, which the state could apply. So with that, sorry to end that on such a down note, but if you'd like to see, or the public would like to see more information on housing laws that staff has to deal with, there's a link to a web page there that we update fairly regularly. We'll be updating again later on this year as the state considers which of the 160 some odd housing bills that it's going to pass. So with that concludes staff's presentation. We're happy to answer any questions that you might have or the public may have as well.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Before I go to my colleagues, I have a couple of things I need to ask myself, and I'm going to get those in really quick. Could you please tell the public what a VMT is?
Sure. So VMT is vehicle miles traveled, and instead of looking at delay like we were talking about, it essentially is the state saying the closer you put people to goods and services and infrastructure, the fewer miles they would travel to get to things. So they've changed the metric.
And they have done that in a lot of areas, not just housing. It's across the board, transportation,
Correct.
everything like that. Okay, my
Correct.
next thing is, I know we've heard a lot of discussions and on the units that are being built at this time. How long have they been in the pipeline ready for construction? How long has it taken them before they put shovel to ground?
Yeah, so Jared and I could probably both chime in on that. I think it varies. We've had some projects that have taken a long time. For example, the Bridges project was approved, I think, more than a decade ago. It's finally wrapping up. That's just the development company took that long to build it. There are other projects that are taking on the order of maybe about a year to process at the city here, get their building permits, and then it takes them, we see typically about a year and a half to build if it's a multifamily project. So that's kind of the typical time frame. So I guess it can range from a decade to just a couple of years.
That's a big variance. And the last question is, there was an article in the newspaper regarding the bonds that we approved. And it was presented as if this council approved 5 new apartment units or multifamily units. And I'd like you to clarify that for us, please, for the public's knowledge.
Sure, Mayor Warren. So what I brought before you 3 meetings in a row was just approving financing through a state agency for those projects. Those projects were already approved by staff or at prior hearings. In one case, something that we had approved, I think, here at the Planning Commission maybe 4 years before. So they're things that were approved many years ago in some cases. And all we were doing those 3 council meetings was approving the bond financing, which is allowed under federal law and state law with the state financing agency. The state agency was also here. We as staff just present it to you since you're familiar with us and you can ask us those questions. We could have also had the state financing agency up here as well, but it's just to approve the financing for those projects. That's all it was.
And it was not to approve new projects.
That's correct. The projects were already approved, already on the books.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to my colleagues, and I'll start with Councilmember DeForest.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just have a couple clarifications. You talked about the SB 9 and the lot division and splitting. Is there a minimum lot size for that to split into 4 and 4?
It depends. It's always complicated, Councilmember DeForest. It typically, I guess the general response is if they can split it and still meet the minimum lot size, that's typically how it would go. But it's a long bill. There's a lot of different scenarios in there. But so, for example, if let's say it was a site where the minimum lot size is a ½ acre and you have an acre, then theoretically you can do an SB 9 lot split. But if you have less, then it might not work. Depends.
So how are we hearing about bills like SB 79, which I'm sure you guys are aware of SB 79, which I think allows lot splitting without a minimum lot size. And I know that has not passed yet, but I know that's in the legislation right now. And that's going to circumvent then SB 9.
That would be alarming, Councilmember DeForest. Yeah, I mean, we do planning with lot sizes on purpose, right, to have different types of neighborhoods, different types of development. So that would be alarming if they're considering just kind of doing away with that. That's another attack at local control.
So when we have a general plan, and when that general plan says half-acre lots or 7,200 square foot lots, that really is just now a suggestion. Is that?
It would seem so if that's the kind of bill they're going to pass.
All right. Thank you for that. One other clarification is, now I know that I was very instrumental in pushing the objective standards because of a couple of appeals that we needed a little bit more design standard ability or something to appeal with or for. Is there something that we should move forward to, maybe as a council, to do some more design standards for single-family homes and for commercial pieces too, so we establish consistency with our community?
Yeah, Councilmember DeForest, I think that's a good idea. Staff was already planning on doing an update to the objective standards starting this fall for single-family and multifamily, but if we want to open it up to the other different development types in the city, that could be something we could look at as well.
All right, thank you so much. I won't take any more time. Thank you so much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I'm moving on to Councilmember Holliday.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Couple of clarifications. You talked about the $50,000 per door fine. When does that go into effect?
There's an element in the Housing Accountability Act that determines that if a court determines that a city acted in bad faith in denying a multifamily housing project, the court could impose a $50,000 per unit fine. So bad faith is a legal definition. I don't know that I could really adequately describe it for you, but if the city isn't honest and forthcoming in how it's reviewing the multifamily housing project, it's a likely scenario when that would come into play. The city attorney may be able to provide more clarification if you want more details.
I had thought I had read that the Attorney General, State Attorney General, was imposing that fine. He got legislation passed that said the fine was retroactive back to the date that was deemed to be when the city started impeding the process.
I hadn't read that.
I don't know if that's passed yet or not, but that's what they're trying to do. So you don't even have a chance to appeal it yet, and the clock is already running. Have you heard anything about that, Mr. Amaya?
No, but what we notice is that ACD learns from cities, they learn from themselves, they keep coming back, and every time, like that's why Carl alluded to, they bring it back, because every time we hear a new law that works, we know it's going to apply across the board next year. And so if you look at the mammoth number of bills that are coming in, I think they keep getting sharper off of finding what each city in the entire state is up to. And it's a very difficult thing to work with.
Yeah, every time we find a way to make it work for a little bit of local control, they try and slam that door shut. I also think there's a bill in front of the legislature right now to increase the start time of the next cycle to 18 months out before it starts. So when you're talking about starting the next regional housing needs assessment process, I think 27 is probably a good target, because they're going to expect us to have that submitted by mid-27 if that bill passes. The other thing I wanted to note on VMT, I know there's been discussions probably at your commission, RCTC. I know there's been at other commissions, WRCOG and others that I've sat on, that the state is losing revenue because a chunk of the population has gone to electrical vehicles. So they're not getting any gas tax anymore. So the VMT, which they're using now, is to say, well, we want people to commute locally and less miles on the road. But they are going to start pushing for a vehicle miles travel tax. And you can see that coming forward from the state legislature in the near future, that they're going to want to charge you for every mile you drive. So instead of every gallon that you use to pump, now you're going to be every mile you drive. The interesting thing is they're not going to get rid of the gas tax when they do it. They're going to double dip. Shocking, right? My last question is, for whomever wants this, probably Mr. Steele. What if we didn't approve the TEFRA bonds? What would happen?
I should have thought you'd ask me about the TEFRA bonds, Councilmember Holliday.
I know, I'm a thorn in your side.
I'm not sure. I mean, it's tough because that's a federal law. TEFRA was, I think it was a Carter era law that was then enacted under the Reagan administration. And then it's been around for 40 plus years. Like we talked about, billions and billions of dollars issued in bonds. I guess there'd be a way for them probably to ask for another hearing and they could just have it maybe at the county or something. Because it doesn't say you have to only take it to the city of Murrieta. It says a hearing in a local area, right? So if we somehow disproved it, I'm sure there's an appeal process and then they could take it to another hearing and get a different body to approve it. I don't think that would be the end of it. I don't think, I guess is my response.
Yeah, if I could maybe speculate a little bit. So one of the new requirements in housing element law that came into the current housing element cycle was called affirmatively furthering fair housing. And so that applies to housing for low-income families, workforce housing. So I wouldn't be surprised if the city council didn't authorize the TEFRA process to move forward. The state would be looking at that and asking why we didn't approve that financing for that housing. But I would just state that's only speculation. But it certainly seems like the foundation is there for the state to do that kind of investigation. And we talked about the enforcement side during the presentation.
And so if they found that we didn't approve it just because we didn't like the housing element, then they could apply the $50,000 per door fine.
I'm not sure about that. Be speculating. I mean, they could deem it that it would be a violation of the state's fair housing laws. Whether or not they could tie it back to the Housing Accountability Act is a different question. I think one of the problems when the state passes new laws, they sometimes don't settle out until there's actually litigation and going through Court of Appeals. So it's hard to say what would happen.
Well, I know I see our governor bragging all the time about how many cities he's taken to task for not doing exactly what he thought they should do. Although if I had a chance to talk to the governor, I would tell him one size legislation does not work.
Yep, we agree.
Personally, I think that the solution is a constitutional amendment to the California Constitution that says the local control is the last and final say for housing and density in communities, because without that, the state's going to ruin every community in the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holliday. Now move on to Councilmember Stone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you so much for your presentation. A couple of questions. Is this a true statement with regards to if we don't negotiate in good faith, in addition to the fines, that the state can come in and upzone all of our properties to high density?
If we were found to be acting in bad faith, they can ratchet it up to get us to that level. It would migrate there, but I think what you're saying is accurate.
So, for example, let's just take the Stater Brothers Shopping Center off of Los Alamos and Hancock. That's zone commercial. Could they sell that to a developer for high density development?
We are seeing that activity up and down the state.
So, excuse me.
Yes, sorry about that. I mean, the state can't sell it. They could only require it to be the zoning change.
Correct. So when we did our general plan back in 1991, we identified rural area, single-family homes, commercial, retail. And now, are you saying that that is completely off the table? That if Stater Brothers, if the investors that own Stater Brothers Shopping Center were to sell to a developer that wants to come in and put 1,000 apartments there, that can happen?
So the state, so far, the state has made that type of scenario possible under a very narrow set of circumstances, though.
But it is possible.
It could be possible.
Okay, thank you so much for that clarification. This is really more of a statement, and that is, I just want the people in the audience to understand that with regards to the traffic congestion. The state of California does not care that we have to accommodate right now until 2028. Part of what they're imposing on us looks approximately of an extra 30,000 people for the city of Murrieta. That's just Murrieta. That does include Temecula, Wildomar, Lake Elsinore, Menifee, and then in addition to all of our cities, you have the area between Murrieta Hot Springs and Dominigoni Parkway. They estimate 206,000 people in the next 15 to 18 years. So when you talk about traffic congestion, one of the things that I've been fighting for is addressing the infrastructure that we desperately need with regards to the state imposing these mandates on the backs of local cities and the residents. So that's just a statement. With regards to the traffic congestion, I want to share with you that the state of California, in conjunction with Caltrans, who operates our freeways, that there is no more expansions, period, on freeways. So Southwest Riverside County, we have the most commuters to San Diego and Orange County. And when you think about the extra residents that are coming to the Southwest region, besides what's happening in the unincorporated areas, what do you think is going to happen? We won't even be able to enter the freeways. So I'm going to talk about how I'm addressing this, but I want you to be aware of the impacts, not just today, but what is it going to look like in the next 15 to 20 years in Southwest Riverside County? Can you explain CEQA? So if Mr. Klein comes in with a developer that wants to build a development versus affordable housing, can you explain how it's not fair that a regular developer has to go through the CEQA process, but affordable housing does not? Can you explain in layman terms so they understand the difference, please?
Sure, I'll give it a try. So the purpose of CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act, is to disclose environmental impacts and then to mitigate significant impacts. So over the course of the last decade, essentially, the state has been carving out what I would call exemptions for housing and affordable housing, so that they basically can bypass that whole entire review process, so that it expedites the development of housing and affordable housing. So for commercial projects, same rules don't apply. They have to go through the full spectrum of environmental analysis. Worst case is a document that we call environmental impact report. So there's a lot of studies, a lot of public review, a lot of public comment. The public gets to argue, if you will, with the outcomes of these studies, and the city council has the opportunity to consider those studies and override them, or essentially deny the project. There's not that same process for how it's more difficult for housing and affordable housing.
But so for example, high density affordable housing apartments, they're exempt from going through that process.
Not always, but there's a huge window for them to be able to take advantage of the carve-outs the state is allowing.
Great, thank you so much for that clarification. And then we have what's called SLA. Can you explain what SLA is? Surplus Land Act. So I want to just give the audience understanding. So we have Town Square Park. This is the hub of our community. And you're going to see vacant land adjacent to the city surrounding our park here. The new law says that if we choose to sell or even lease I believe is also included, or is it just the sell? that we cannot sell it to a entertainment type of facility. There's a beautiful concept in Temecula called Vail Ranch. How many of you have been to Vail Ranch? It's fantastic. If we wanted to do that same concept here, by law, we're not allowed to do that. We have to offer it to an affordable housing project first. We have to go through our due diligence. And if we don't negotiate in fairness, then we are fined from the state of California. So they're dictating to us what we can even do with our own property. And that's just information for you. So in Temecula, on Yanez and Rancho California Road behind, I'm trying to think of what's on the pond, Oscar's on the Pond. Do you know where that is, everybody? There's a development, a high-density apartment development. The city of Temecula saw earth movers on that piece of property and had no idea what was going on. And guess what? The state came in and allowed affordable housing and not negotiate or go through any of the process with the city of Temecula. And Councilmember John Lavelle and I, we talk often about this issue that is very, very, very frustrating. And what we do not want is that we want to be able to have some sort of control of development as much as we possibly can, because the state has taken that away from us. But what we don't want is for a developer to be able to develop without going through the process here in Murrieta and taking a prime piece of property and doing what they did in the city of Temecula. So I want you also to understand what is happening as well. And then staff also told you about the new RENA numbers. So this allotment ends, I believe it's 4,400 affordable housing units we have to have. Is it 4,400?
No, it's about 2,000, and our total requirement is 3,000.
So 3,000, and then the state is going to impose another allotment on us in 2029. And we have no idea, because as David Shantaransu said, I'm the representative of SCAG, and SCAG has the cities in this region where we fight the state of California. They've taken that power away from us at the local level again. So I want you to be aware, in 2029, the state is going to impose another allotment, and it could be even more than 3,000. So that is something I want you to be aware of. Now, in closing, I want to share with you what I'm doing. I created what's called the Southwest Leaders Collaborative, where all 5 cities, Pechanga, the county, and transportation agencies. The mayor sits on this with me, represents RCTC, WRCOG. And what are we doing? We've in the last year and a quarter, we have gathered data and information to understand how we can fight the state of California. What we are not willing to do, like Huntington Beach, is they have implemented many, many lawsuits. It's cost the citizens millions and millions of dollars. We own our own police department, we own our own fire department, our senior center, and our library. We are not going to sue the state knowingly that we're gonna lose when we have to be fiscally responsible. So putting together this collaborative and putting together all this information from the experts in this field, we're going to go, the mayor and I, in the 5 cities, we're going to go to Sacramento in June and have a conversation with the state of California about the lack of infrastructure, our freeways, and fighting for local control. In addition, I passed a resolution that challenges the state of California on everything we're talking about. Why is that important? Some people are like, oh, Lori, that's just a piece of paper. It means nothing. It does not mean something. It means something, because there's other cities throughout the state of California. When I travel for conventions on behalf of the city of Murrieta, I am communicating and engaging with other cities across the state of California. And I want you to know that Democratic cities, Republican cities, this is now a nonpartisan issue. This is the most important issue that cities have been faced with, and we're going to come together. And if we can get more cities to sign on this resolution, what does this mean? It means that none of us have really challenged the state of California, and we need to start having a voice. And that's exactly what the resolution in going to Sacramento is going to do. So what can you do to partner with council? What you can do is be a voice. The governor needs to hear that the residents are very, very unhappy what is being imposed on the backs of you. And also in 2026, when you vote, vote accordingly to the governor that you know that aligns with your quality of life values. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Stone. Councilmember Lavelle.
Thank you much. I apologize for being late. I had to drive through several high-density housing projects. Multiple lights, 5 cycles of traffic to get through one light. Just a couple of questions. Before Carl took over, can we go back to the, I don't know what slide it was, but I want to go 2 slides before when you took the mic, if that's possible. Yeah, just keep going back, sorry. From where Carl started to before that. You know? That one, yep. Oh, wow, I actually did the math right. So there, the SB 743 talks about the traffic congestion, not an environmental impact. And of the, how you would use CEQA to prove an impact to kind of stop or hinder a project, why don't they consider that an impact? Because with regards to safety, I think you could argue that traffic delay could be a significant impact to safety or quality of life in several measures. Did they talk about how this wasn't a safety issue?
Commissioner, there's a separate section in reviewing environmental analysis. It's called the hazards section. We typically would look at that section to describe things that were hazardous to like a cyclist or a motorist. The state has already ripped that out of CEQA, if you will, so we're just simply not able to rely upon that for that specific requirement or that issue. Public safety is what we usually look at separately from traffic.
So to use public safety, what would be an example of how public safety could be used to argue against density? Is that ever a case?
I'd be careful with, well, public safety is when a developer is proposing a project, and recently we have new fire maps, right? So there's a lot more areas where we have to be really careful at the type of structure and the type of fuel modification. So if you're in a normal area, you want at least 100 feet from the edge of your building within your own property to maintain. That's where you have irrigated landscaping and you don't have any other types of vegetation that would catch on fire. But if an applicant is not able to provide us with those on-site fuel modification zones, that could be an issue where we're being challenged with making the findings for that. That's why we do spend quite a lot of time on those types of subjects. We ask for fire protection plans to give us a thorough analysis if that's a safe area and what types of best management practices or mitigation measures would be required to implement that housing in the area. But that would be a small example, as fuel, fire safety is a big one right now for us.
So one that comes to mind, if I'm a police officer getting called to a disturbance, violent activity, and I have to drive through what I just drove through because of the increased population, that absolutely will impact the safety or the perceived safety of a community, correct? I mean, could it be interpreted that way?
I'll go back to our general plan. And our general plan tells us what the typical response time would be for fire. I think it tells us 6 minutes and 4 seconds is about the average. Those are the types of city council directives that we look at to see if the project would be in compliance. Whether or not it's a safety issue, I think we'd have to look a little bit closer at that specific concern.
and you have all of the new developments being erected and built amongst the city, to talk about how it's impacted, you would almost have to project the compounding effect of having so many happen at once. You could almost guarantee it would be a thing, but to measure it and to quantify it, I don't know how you would do that other than just common sense.
And I think that's why you've seen CFDs, community financing districts, come before you, is because that is a tool by which we can get more funding for firefighters and police officers per door.
Yeah.
So although the state's not helping us out, there are other mechanisms by which we look for. Because we have to make sure that we have those folks attenuating our newer development areas.
Okay, I appreciate the clarity. A couple of small things. You know, Facebook has a lot of chatter on these types of, we talked about the bond issue, how that's, us approving all kinds of high density, low income housing. The statement of why doesn't the city just put a park there? Why doesn't the city build, a mall or another car dealership or whatever? Can you talk about how we don't build things? We don't do that kind of business, and that this is really the private sector driving most of the stuff you see?
Sure, I can talk a little bit about that, Councilmember Lavelle. So, yeah, essentially, it gets back to what Jared said. We have a general plan, right, that has first adopted in the city, incorporated in 1991, and we've updated it over time. The general plan locks in where we intend land uses to go, and then there's zoning that's another layer underneath that. So that's where we intend things to be. So we have, park sites where, for example, right behind the building here, we have a park site where we have our amphitheater, and that's planned and it's been in there and it got built. There are other sites that are planned for housing, and developers get a hold of those sites. They might sit on them a long time, take 10 years to build a project like we talked about with the mayor, or they might build them in a year or two. But those are the other thing related to the presentation is those sites are now locked in with state law. We can't take those away, and council can't take them away. The sites that are housing sites are locked in. We can't go back. The state passed a law that was retroactive to 2018 that locked in all the housing sites. So we don't have the authority to take those away now. And we can't arbitrarily decide, the council can't arbitrarily decide, oh, we'd rather see a park there. It's locked in for housing if it's a housing site, and that's all that can be built there. The only other options would be in mixed use areas where you might have the option of having some housing and some not, but we don't have a lot of mixed use, and it doesn't really work that well in Southwest Riverside County, so that's kind of like a different discussion. But
so because it's locked in and you're the developer that owns the lot and you've been sitting on it for 20 years and you finally want to do something with it and you realize, well, I actually can only build houses now or sell this to a developer that will only be able to build houses, that's kind of you're trapped. Even if you will have an altruistic mindset for what you would want to do to the community by building more houses, what are you going to do?
That's a good point, Councilmember Lavelle. And in some ways, the state legislature did handcuff property owners to a specific type of development because of the legislation they passed.
Yeah. On that same kind of concept, the car wash storage facility, I was on planning commission for 4 years before this. It was a lot of what we saw. Why did the city build another car wash? It needs to be, again, reiterated that if it's zoned commercial per the general plan, we're not dictating the private market or, interfering with capitalism at that point in time. So it's the private sector that's driving those types of developments, probably because they pencil on paper at that time.
That's correct. We as staff don't get to pick and choose what the uses are. Developers propose a use, we process the project, bring it forward to hearings.
And, got my council hat off. You wouldn't want the government telling what to do and what not to do with your private land or what you were entitled to. Just like Ms. Stone was talking about here, we don't want there to be more control. We want there to be less control, especially from the state level. VMT, you guys talked about it a little bit. Just a thought when Mr. Holliday brought it up. If the state's going to track and tax on vehicle miles traveled, that would mean they're going to have a way to see how many miles you've traveled. What if your car didn't have an odometer or you broke the odometer on purpose?
So, Councilmember, I was going to mention, because I've seen a presentation on it, Caltrans already had a pilot program on this. I think it was a few years ago, and it's It's basically a device that if you buy a car in California, the device will be in your car. That's what Caltrans has already done a pilot program on.
Could you, I mean, not opt out of it or break the thing with a hammer? Like what?
It's similar to, so for example, I've lived in other states and then moved here. In other states, right, the emission standards are different, right? But in California, if you buy a car in California, there's certain emission standards and we have our smog checks and things like that. Caltrans is posing it that way, that it's just another thing they're gonna add on. I've seen Caltrans make a presentation on this a few years back. So I agree with the comments that the council made that they're just ramping, I think it was Councilmember Holiday, they're ramping up to do that at some point.
That's interesting. I'll try to take mine off and put it on a neighborhood squirrel or something. So that's all I got. Thank you guys for the presentation. And, just wanted to know that we are pursuing every possible angle we can to push back on this high density. And that's why I like the public's involvement. If they have ideas, I think all of us up here are open ears. I mean, every possible brain fighting this fight would be welcomed.
Thank you. At this time, we are going to take questions and comments from the public, but we're going to do something just a tiny bit different. And after the person talks, if they have any questions, I would then ask staff to address those questions, and I'll bring it back to council. And if you have something that you would like to address at that time with that comment, that would be great. So that way we keep this moving and flowing, okay? Moving along. Madam City Clerk, do we have any public comments?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Laura Massey.
Please come on up to the podium right here for me. Thank you.
Discussed what was going to happen and that you have no control of the traffic, but mine was about the traffic. So I don't know if I should even go through the whole song and dance.
It's up to you. You have your time.
Okay, well, I'll just say what I have to say, and then I have some suggestions. I don't know.
You do have 3 minutes, okay?
All right, so basically, I support the need for affordable housing, and I ask that we also consider the impact of concentrating so many housing units, which based on the residential activity plan can potentially be over 3,000 within the West Side neighborhoods. This area is already facing significant traffic congestion, especially around the high school, grocery store, and during student drop-offs and pickup hours. Personally, and this is regarding the housing unit you're going to put across the street from Murrieta Valley High. Personally, I have to plan my grocery shopping around school hours to avoid heavy traffic, which speaks to how overloaded this area already is. My concern is that adding thousands more units, without expanding road infrastructure or considering alternative locations will only worsen the situation and pose safety risks for pedestrians and drivers alike. I'd like to ask the council, why is the expansion concentrated primarily on the west side? Are there opportunities to consider the east or northern part of the city, which may be more suitable for future development? And basically, I'd hope that we can work together as a community to ensure that our city grows in a balanced and thoughtful way, protecting the livelihood and safety of all our neighborhoods. And thank you for your time and consideration. However, I do have a question. Can the city do a petition or something to go to the state and have, people sign it, and maybe that we can try to fight it somehow that way? Or have you guys considered doing statistics on heavy trafficked areas and what are the safety risks and how many people have gotten injured, and doing some kind of study on that? Maybe we can kind of bring that up to the state, because I just see them just railroading over everybody, and they're not really looking. They make decisions and then they look later and go, oh, well, we shouldn't have done that. But it's like a little too late. And if there's a way that we can prevent this, but I mean, we can also impeach our mayor or the governor, but yeah, that doesn't go through. We know that. We've tried that several times.
I know.
But yeah. So that's all I have to say. I thank you for your time.
Before you leave, staff, do you have any comments on her question?
Well, I think because of some of the reasons that Mr. Steele, Mr. Ramaya, provided, you heard that we're locked in, to the current housing plan that we have now. So the next time we do the housing element, which is going to be, apparently starting in 2027, we go through an entire public outreach process. We solicit input from the community, and we ask the community to help us to, help decide where the housing is going to be built in Murrieta over the next 8 years.
Is there a reason why they didn't consider the other areas and they're just focused on just the west side?
Yeah, do you guys know?
Because, I mean, there's a lot more land at other places within Murrieta than.
The only thing I would offer is, so like I talked about in the presentation, we didn't add more sites in the most recent update, which was in 21. We used the existing sites, and most of them are located here in the downtown, where we have construction right down the corner here, and near the triangle, north of the triangle. That's where most of our units are being built, the vast majority of units. There are projects down on Washington. Those properties have been zoned residential for a long time. We didn't add those sites. They were already there. So they're not new.
What about the impact of schools? I mean, will the school be overcrowded and then they're going to deal with that issue? The state or the city has to deal with that.
Could you please speak into the microphone?
I'm sorry.
She asked about schools.
I'm talking about the schools. I think the schools will be inundated with students once all these builds are done, and then the city has to deal with all of this again. So there's an impact with school and teachers and being over, too many students, and it's just going to be exhausting.
It's a good question. I can help with that. We do meet with the school district regularly. We did in the most recent general plan update. We just met with them last year on a site which people didn't like on the west side. We had a hearing here at the Planning Commission. So yeah, we coordinate closely with the school district. The school district is also planning for this development. And if you attend a school board meeting, you'll see that they're talking about this as well. It's something they're planning for.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Holliday, you had something you wanted to comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to address her question. Is there something we can do about getting a petition together? Through our state representatives, Assemblymember Kate Sanchez and Senator Kelly Ciardo, we've expressed our concerns to them, and they agree with us, and they've expressed that concern to the legislature and the governor, and they don't care. Not those representatives. The rest of the legislature and the governor doesn't care. Our solution, I think our only viable solution to getting local control back, is a constitutional amendment that says we are the final say. Each community has the final say to carve out its destiny. That's what we need. It's going to take probably 2 or 3 years to get that put into place. We're going to have to get signatures. We're going to have to get a committee together. We're going to have to raise money. We're going to have to do all that. The ballot measure will be relatively simple, probably a couple of sentences. But if we can get the people out to vote on it, probably in the 28 election, we can start getting our local control back, because I don't think that the legislature or the governor is ever going to give it back to us on their own.
Thank you. Councilmember Stone, you had one comment for her?
Yes, I have a comment, but I want to just piggyback on Councilmember Holliday. Wow, that's a fantastic idea. You're looking at about $10 million to raise as well. That's a lot of money, but I'm for that. In addition to what I said, I want to let you know that as residents, we are frustrated with traffic, and Bob Mailing that's sitting in the audience here, I drive him crazy probably every day about traffic. Can you real fast talk about a program that I initiated, which is the pilot program, just so our residents understand that we have something in the works, please? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Stone. I'll just briefly talk about the pilot program on Los Alamos roadway corridor from the 215 over to the probably 15 overpass. We have actually installed some cameras there so we can actually monitor the traffic, mostly around school times and travel times in the morning and afternoons. And we're looking at local control over some of those traffic signals and see if we can actually move some of the traffic quicker and more efficiently than is out there today. So that's the pilot program we're working on today.
And you'll be bringing back a report after you do this study?
Once we divulge all the information, digest it, take a look at it with our traffic engineer, we'll make a presentation to council.
Super, thank you. I'm going to move on to public comments. Madam City Clerk.
Imad Sadat.
Hello, you have 3 minutes.
Hello. Hello to all the council members and everyone that's here, including the staff. I really appreciated the presentation that the staff put on. It was very thorough, and I thought it was very interesting. But in all of the discussion about the negative impacts about further housing developments that have been brought on by state action, I feel like we've neglected to mention the main reason why these actions have taken place, and that is housing unaffordability. My father bought his home in 2000 for $200,000. Currently, similar homes in the area go for about $600,000. And this is a trend that's followed all across the city. Housing has risen in price roughly 3 times. And this isn't just because of inflation. This is because of many factors. I mean, the CPI has only increased by 85% over a similar period, and real median wage growth has only increased, real as in including inflation, has only increased by around 25%, okay? There's a gap somewhere in there of, why are housing prices increasing? And the state is looking to solve that. And part of the reason they've increased is, well, we've historically underbuilt for population growth. Now, the staff's presentation has mentioned that the population has plateaued in California over a time period, and respectfully, I take umbrage with that. We're still growing as a state and as an area. As you mentioned, the state expects us to grow by 250,000 people by around, I forget what you said, but they expect us to grow over like a period of a decade by 250,000 people. And so while talking about the negative impacts, I think we should consider the positive impacts that increasing housing supply will bring to decreasing the growth of housing unaffordability to people like me who are not currently homeowners, who wish to own a home in the future. And so I wish for you guys to consider that in addition to the negative impacts. And as well, with my remaining time, I believe Councilmember Stone spoke on the negative impact of traffic, and the state has not allocated, or has said that we're basically not going to expand the highways. And it's a bit laughable, I'll admit, but there are other modes of transport. I know this is SoCal, this is the home of the car, we have a car culture, but there are other modes of transport that are equally as viable, and there are other options that I'm sure that's the reason why the state is saying we're not going to grow the 15 or other highways anymore. So like Cal HSR, actually, again, a little laughable, but there's going to be a stop planned in Murrieta. So again, I wish for you to take into account all these things.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Thank you. Councilmember DeForest.
Ahmad, thank you for your comments, and I love your youthfulness in your comments. And I think that for my kids and for you talking about wanting to afford a home, which I'm all for because I think that's how we build wealth. And the problem is what I'm seeing is we're doing apartments, right? We're not doing homes. So I'm all for doing small homes, entry-level homes. I remember my parents bought this little cottage house. It was a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house. And, that's where we started building wealth. And, that now house is worth a lot more money in Pasadena than it was then. But I love your comments, and thank you for that. So,
Madam Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Sadat, there's a couple of things I want you to take into consideration. The policies, fees that the state has imposed on development is egregious, in addition to the local fees. My home that I purchased 5 years ago for $380,000 is worth, close to $800,000 today. I could not afford an $800,000 home myself. My children who live out of state cannot move back to Murrieta, California. There's an oxymoron going here, and that is the cost of goods, the fees, the Miller-Rooses, the bonds, everything that you think of what's on the backs of the residents, and that the state now is imposing these affordable housing units. It doesn't make sense. If the state would pull back on the egregious fees that are imposed on the development, I promise you our cost of homes would go down. So I encourage you to do a little bit more research on what the state is imposing on the backs of the cities. But I agree with you. It's outrageous. Thank you. And thank you for your comment, by the way.
Councilmember Lavelle.
Thank you. Also, I moved here over 20 years ago and rented an apartment here. I think it was like $1,200 for a one-bedroom on the 3rd floor. If I walked up to, let's say, Malibu, I could almost give the same presentation myself that you gave here, and then someone from, let's say, San Jacinto or Hemet could probably do that in other cities. So it's like a trickle-down effect. You could take someone all the way down. I grew up in Texas. Houses when I was growing up were $60,000. It's all relative, and it's like, how far do you make that adjustment if you were going to try and impede or assist in what capitalism was doing? It's a very complex problem, and there's multiple layers. Like Councilwoman Stone had mentioned here, it's not just developers charging what they want for homes. There's so many things that make them have to charge that to literally build the homes.
In addition to that, we haven't talked about and took in consideration with regard to the cost of home is fire insurance. It is either outrageous or people can't even get fire insurance. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, we're going to bring it back. Thank you. And let's also remember that we would love to see entry-level single-family homes into this community, but what's being forced upon us is multi-unit apartments. We're going to move on to our next public speaker, Madam City Clerk.
Dee Dee Ramella.
Welcome. And you too also have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Dee Dee Ramella, and I just have a couple of comments and a couple of questions. Let's remember that bonds are taxes and grants have strings. You mentioned SCAG, which is the Southern California Association of Governments. As you will know, they're a planning organization that undertakes planning and policies to encourage sustainability in Southern California. They have a lot to do with what you're talking about right now, along with ICLEI. My question is, I tried to find out if you were a member of SCAG, and I know that Temecula is, but I don't see that Murrieta is.
Yes, and I'm the delegate,
Okay.
and I will be going to their General Assembly, I think, in 2 weeks.
Okay. My comment is about VMT. It's nice that California thinks that it's fallen apart because it's not getting the gas money they need. I find it hard to believe that the electrical vehicles have taken over California. I think what it really boils down to is that they're trying to get you into these 15-minute cities because they want you to do without those cars, those vehicles. I know right now in Upland they're having meetings on how you will feel about having no vehicle. I also have one question for you that just came up. This may not be too much to do with the housing, but they are trying to implement, they've done it in Fontana, they're trying to implement where the waste services is billed along with your property taxes now. Is that an issue that has come up at all within this housing and the council meetings?
No. Staff, did you want to answer that question? Yeah.
I'm not familiar with that approach on the taxes.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on. Next public comment, please. Oh,
I just want to say,
second, one moment.
I just want to say I like your shirt.
Okay, moving on.
Casson Klein.
Happy tax day, everybody.
Well, you know how to ruin the day.
I've sat up there in the corner and listened to your gallant fight against the state. And Lori, as you pointed out, I represent developers. And to make a comparison, one of the things that developers do, applicants do, to protect themselves from a CEQA challenge is they make their environmental document as bulletproof as possible. And our staff has done an extraordinarily excellent job in dealing with what the state has put down on them. And that is not a gratuitous compliment to staff. I work with them on the Development Advisory Group. I represent developers, and I come to these meetings and witness them. So what do we need to do besides fight? Because developers have not been successful fighting CEQA. Would you all agree? Okay. So what I have not heard you all discuss that I believe needs to be discussed is making our development code and our general plan as bulletproof as possible. And what needs to be done with that is, one, you need to hire more staff. And even in the face of our budget challenges, we need more planning staff that is dedicated to this. You heard David say something, I heard David say something to the effect of, we're gonna have to hire staff that's just dedicated to this. And we've already got that. I don't know if he tracks hours, but I can tell you just from representing development, non-residential development that gets pushed to the back of the list or the bottom of the pile, this is not a negative on staff. They're dealing with what they have to deal with. It takes time, and staff is doing double duty. It's going to require more staff, and you need to hire a legal firm that understands land use law and that does not have a conflict of interest in representing both sides. So I'd like to hear from you guys a plan for that, and maybe you can't come up with that because of budget constraints and things, but those are absolutely moving forward, and I'd be happy to meet with any of you to talk about how we got here, how Murrieta got here, and how California got here, and why the legislature has done what it's done. Because the argument or the things that we hear are the same things that I heard 20 years ago when I sat on the Planning Commission, and people would fill the room saying, we don't want those people. In closing, I'll tell you this. The other day, I went through a file that my stepdad gave me, and there was a letter from our first police chief, Doug Milmore. If I may? Please continue. Thank you. There's a letter from our first police chief, Doug Milmore, to a community group, and the very things that that community group outlined as concerns for our community are the exact same things we're talking about today. And one day you folks will be able to see that, because I need to talk to Chief Henry if he wants it, or if I'm going to give it to the museum. Thank you for the extra time.
Thank you. You're welcome. Councilmember Lavelle, you had a comment?
Yeah. What Mr. Klein had mentioned about hiring a staff member or multiple members to refine the development code to be as bulletproof as possible, is that something you or maybe our city manager has ever seen, like a consultant come in and actually be a refined professional in making those types of changes? Because if this hasn't been done before, the fight hasn't been fought before to do these things in California, maybe there is a company or a consortium that is starting to ramp up or do these things for other cities.
In my strongest opinion, it cannot be a consultant. No one knows the city better than the residents, but our very staff. I guarantee you, no consultant knows the city better than these gentlemen sitting up right here. I mean, Jarrett and Carl, I can tell you, I don't know whether they live here or not, but how they treat our development code and development is like their residents. They are as passionate about what they do as I am standing here in front of you talking to you today. So no consultants, it's gotta be staff. And I understand that brings about financial, but that's what has to be done in my opinion.
Okay, I hear you, but if we hire somebody dedicated for this, how are they going to change the legislation and the governor and the impacts imposed on the backs of the cities?
There's not a single solution, Lori. There's not a single solution. Again, in the example that I gave, right? Individual developers cannot fight CEQA.
Correct.
Right? I'm standing here telling you we can't fight government, and what do I do most of the time when I come up here to speak to you guys? I'm fighting you.
But the residents have a voice and they can fight.
I'm not saying to take.
But what you're saying is it has nothing to do with what's imposed on the backs of the cities.
What I'm saying is you have to make it as bulletproof as possible. I'll give you one more example. David brought up there's either new legislation that's been passed or it's going to be passed that cities can't use CEQA any longer, right? Yet we had an appeal last year based on CEQA. So the state is as smart or smarter than the city. So it's a two-pronged approach. We need to be as bulletproof as possible, and how we do that is how I said. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to bring this back up now. City manager, you have a comment?
Yeah. I think the simple answer to the question is yes, there are such positions that focus on the kind of long-range planning that would both tighten up areas of a general plan, which of course we do in a regular matter of course anyway. But just like historically when we realized a lot of these developments would be dealt with administratively and that we needed objective design standards, there are lots and lots of other layers that you can add, of course constrained by state law, which I don't want to underestimate, how that is still a factor. But I think Mr. Klein is exactly right that if you add the other elements, whether they be design, whether they be certain standards that need to be met, and you work on closing loopholes and doing those kinds of things, you can arm yourself to some extent. I think what we realize is sometimes we're on our heels a little bit, right? That the changes in state law and the cleverness of some of the development applications, their willingness to kind of fight on multiple fronts, anything that's in our code that's not quote unquote bulletproof is vulnerable. So I wouldn't want to overplay that hand, but yes, some cities do invest more than we do, and there are positions that even can get into architectural review and other elements consistent with design standards, or again, long range planning to really refine what we think are acceptable uses. And that's something we could explore further if council were interested without downplaying at all the budget constraints. But there may be some creative ways to do those things. And if any of our directors want to add to that, I'd welcome their input.
Just a quick response to the way the state is so clever in finding holes in language, maybe in general plans, kind of is what happened with the design standards. We didn't have it. We didn't think we needed to have it. And that was a tool that you guys found and collaboratively that we were able to find. Stuff like that is really what's going to be doable, correct? The more examples like that.
Yeah, and Councilmember, the best part was we got the state to pay for that too.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, I'm now going to bring it back and allow council, if anybody has a request to speak, please put it in there. We'll each get one last chance to make a statement or ask a question, and then we'll move forward. And I have Councilmember DeForest, you're on.
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor. I would just like to have you elaborate a little bit. RENA was thrown around a lot, and I think that it's really interesting because some people have talked about changing zoning for the west side, and that's been brought up a lot from emails. Hey, can we push the zoning somewhere else? And I know this was, 2013. Other council said that, they didn't really think that we'd be completely hijacked like we have been from the state. With this whole west side, and happens to be who I represent is west side as well as the whole entire city. But the people from the west side have said, hey, can't we move some of this development out of the west side? Can you talk about RENA and how we've met our RENA and how important that is? And can you also talk about if we go over say RENA, say we take a development and we say, oh, this commercial property could be, single family homes, let's say, and talk about whether that RENA gets applied at a later time, or can we save in a RENA pool for a rainy day when we want to take something and maybe downsize the development. Maybe it was 1,000 homes and we want to make it 200. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, Councilmember.
And before you do that, would you tell everybody what RENA stands for?
Yes.
Sure.
Thank you.
The Regional Housing Needs Assessment. It's something that's imposed on all the cities and counties in the state, so all 500 plus. It comes from the State Housing and Community Development Department. There's a number that they give the local authorities, our authority being SCAG, who just then distributes it to the cities and counties. As David alluded to, the state now in recent legislation has taken that away, and they're just going to directly distribute it in the next cycle, and SCAG's been cut out of the process for the most part. So that's what it is. Our RENA this last cycle that we worked on. It's for the 2021 to 2029. Our RENA was 3,043 units. And like I said, about 2,000 of those are what people would call affordable housing, and about 1,000 is what we call market rate regular housing. So far, where we're at, and I'm about to bring the housing numbers at a future council meeting because we have to report on them every year. We've met our market rate target, the 1,000 plus, we've met that. We're getting close to meeting the low income target, which is one of the lower targets, but we haven't met some of the other ones. So we haven't met all of them, but we've made progress, I guess you could say. It's something that we're required to do. It's something that is in our housing element, which is part of our general plan. So it's not something that cities and counties can say, nah, I don't want to do that. Everyone has to do it. We all have to comply with the numbers. The important thing, which we talked about in the presentation, is in this most recent cycle, and we worked on this when Councilmember Lavelle was on the Planning Commission, we decided not to increase densities anywhere in the city. We decided not to move units around anywhere in the city. We proposed a housing element that would just utilize what we had on the ground. And that was acceptable, right? We brought it forward. We didn't have a lot of opposition. Planning Commission approved it. City Council approved it. So we didn't move units around. There are cities out there that propose that. And there's people who don't want the units to come to their neighborhood either, right? If you propose to move them from one side of town to the other. So we didn't get into all that. It's possible that that's something we'll get into in the next cycle if there's areas where we aren't able to accommodate the RENA. But in this case, in the most recent cycle, we didn't have to move units around. So we didn't propose to do that. And so we left them alone. And then while we were working on it, the state passed the laws that locked in the densities across the state. And that was retroactive to 2018. It was passed in 2020. And that also sort of changed the landscape where you really couldn't easily move the units around anymore. And not that it was ever easy, but it was just different 10 years ago, let's say. So we sort of successfully avoided that in this last cycle, but we were stuck with the existing housing sites, which we are seeing now get built. So that's kind of long-winded response.
Thank you. Very, very clear. I love the transparency. Thank you so much. And just for transparency, we are all sitting up here united on the resolution. We all signed the resolution. It's not one person pushing the resolution forward. And historically, this council in 2018 also, not us, we weren't on the council. I think Councilwoman Stone and myself are probably the longest sitting council, getting elected in 2020. But in 2018, it was also brought forward with a resolution to take that local control back. So they've been pulling more and more control away from us and local control. And I think that it is about time that we stand up for ourselves. And we are not a body to just be run over, and that we actually have a voice and we are listening to our citizens, which are emailing in constantly, and also, as Councilmember Lavelle stated, Facebooking us like crazy when anything happens. So I understand, and that's why this workshop I think is so important, and I want to thank you for your clarity, your transparency for the community. I think this will be something that we could direct citizen back to actually watch and say, hey, here's some information. So thank you to you all for, we do have an amazing staff and you do know our city and you've seen the changes because you guys have been here a long time. So I just want to reiterate, thank you so much. And we all stand united against this. So, and yes, we do need homes for our younger families to move into, but maybe not quite like this and not the density and not really thinking about any infrastructure going forward with that as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll go to Councilmember Stone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to thank the residents that came out today that are here, listening firsthand the facts, instead of just assuming what we are not doing here at the city of Murrieta. I also want to thank our city manager for bringing this workshop forward. This has been a number one priority for me, is addressing traffic congestion, infrastructure, lack of infrastructure, and opposing the state mandate. So thank you so much for hearing me. I really appreciate it. In addition, I really want to give acknowledgement to our Assistant City Manager, Kristen Crane, who's to my right here, who's been standing with me side by side for the last 2 years in dealing with this issue. And as Councilmember DeForest said, we are united in this effort. We are taking, I believe, the lead. And while there was a resolution, I think she said in 2011, 18, thank you, the resolution that I brought forward that collectively we all agreed upon is hitting other cities. More now than ever, we have to stay united. Again, this is a nonpartisan issue, and please know we're doing everything that we can to fight the state, but we're not going to do it on the backs of our coffers, because we know through Santa Monica and Huntington Beach we will lose. But again, your voice matters along with ours, and again, ours. So again, I want to thank my colleagues for being honest and open and transparent about what we're facilitating, what we're advocating for, and just know we will continue until hopefully things change in 2026. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Stone. Councilmember Lavelle?
Thank you, Mayor. If you walk outside right now, you'll notice that it's a beautiful day. You know, I grew up in Texas. I would not move back to Texas if I had a free house. So California is amazing in a lot of ways, and it's not in some of the ways we've talked about today. There's still a fight to fight. And again, to Councilwoman Stone's point, thank you for the public being here. I know if anybody reaches out that's in here or the 5 people on Facebook that are watching, what you're not gonna hear is we're not interested in the ideas, we don't care about the issue. I think between the cities like Huntington Beach trying to be successful, getting sued and suing, the conversations we have up on the dais here, the resolutions we pass, the brains in the audience and on Facebook, there's going to be an answer soon enough when we're collective together working against the issue and the tyranny from the wonderful city of Sacramento. So it's not clear yet, but I do find hope that we're gonna push back on these issues and retake some control. So thank you for being here. Thank you, staff, for the presentation. And again, I apologize for being late.
Apology accepted. Yeah. Councilmember Holliday?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Couple things to Councilmember DeForest's point about if you build more houses in your allocation, do we get to put them in a pool? The answer to that is no. But I had requested Senator Kelly Ciardo put forward a bill for me that basically said that exact thing, that if we actually produce more in this current cycle than was required, which we don't build the houses, developers do, but if we happen to develop more, we should get credit in the next cycle. And he agreed with me and put that bill forward, and it died in the legislature because the majority of the legislature doesn't want us to be able to build more in the current cycle. They want us, if you build more, sucks to be you. And then, therefore, you're going to still have a new allocation you're going to have to meet. And like Huntington Beach, that has no developable land, that's why they're fighting so hard. They have nowhere to put new houses. And so the state says, sorry, you still have to do it. So that's why they're fighting. Fortunately, in Murrieta, we do still have some land. Fortunately, thanks to our staff, we didn't upzone anything, and we're able to get our numbers in place. We thank you for that. But the next round is going to be harder. And that's why we've got to look outside the box. And I just want to clarify that this council is not against housing. This council is for local control. We want to be able to make decisions that benefit affordability, that benefit quality development, so that young people can find a home that they can buy versus an apartment that they can rent. And a lot of times it sounds like we want to fight the state because we don't want to build anything. That's not the case. I attend a group of cities called the California Alliance of Local Electeds, and it's cities all around California, all the way from Northern California, all the way to San Diego. And these cities, and the number one thing that we're talking about in these meetings is local control. And as Councilmember Stone said, it's not a partisan issue because we have very liberal cities that are part of that group, and they have the same thing. It's like, yeah, we don't like that we don't have any say in this. So thanks staff, thanks everybody for attending. It's nice to see you guys come out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In closing, I have learned over the last 4 years that the state loves to punish. They don't like to reward. When you're doing the best you can do and you're abiding by the rules, they find ways to punish you. And that's wrong, and that needs to stop. And our voices need to be heard. But 5 people alone cannot go up to Sacramento and make a change. But collectively, we are better together for a brighter tomorrow. We must work together in a lawful way to make change for the betterment of this community, for responsible development, for safety and quality of life. And we are dedicated as your council members to do that. So please, if you have any ideas, please let us know. We want to hear them. We appreciate all of you taking the time out of your afternoon to be here today. We thank for all the comments that we received, and staff, what an outstanding presentation. I couldn't be more proud. Thank you very much for your time in making this clear and understanding for everybody who attended here or attended online. I thank you very much. And at this time, we're going to call a recess until 5:15 to open closed session. Thank you. Good afternoon. Welcome to the April 15th meeting. The Murrieta City Council is now called to order. Madam City Clerk.
Councilmember DeForest.
Here.
Councilmember Stone. Councilmember Holliday.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lavelle.
Here.
Mayor Warren.
Here.
Let the record reflect that all members are present with the exception of Councilmember Stone.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. At this time, Madam City Clerk, would you please go over the closed session agenda and any public comments?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There are no public comments. City Council will conduct closed session with the City Manager, Assistant City Manager, the Administrative Services Director, and the City Attorney pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.95B to consider the following workers' compensation claims: Linton versus City of Murrieta, WCAB case number ADJ 1568699, ADJ 151-31744. City Council will also conduct a closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6 with the City Manager, Assistant City Manager, the City Attorney, and the city's negotiators regarding labor negotiations with the Murrieta Police Officers Association.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. With that, we're going to recess into closed session, and we will reconvene at 6 p.m. for our regular council meeting. Thank you. Good evening. Oh, that was awesome. Uh-oh. We just lost. There we go. Okay, we're good. All right. I would like to call the April 15th regular meeting of the Murrieta City Council to order. Announcement of closed session action. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. The council met in closed session on 2 items. The first was to confer with legal counsel regarding existing litigation in the matter of Linton versus the City of Murrieta. In this item, the council was updated, no reportable action. The second item was to confer with labor negotiators pursuant to negotiations with the Murrieta Police Officers Association. In this item, again, the council was updated, no reportable action. Thank you.
Thank you, City Attorney. Madam City Clerk, would you please call roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember DeForest.
Here.
Councilmember Stone.
Here.
Councilmember Holliday.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lavelle.
Here.
Mayor Warren.
Here.
Let the record reflect that all members are present, and may I note for the record that Councilmember Stone arrived at 5:18 prior to closed session.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. At this time, if you are able, I would ask each of you to stand. We're going to do our Pledge of Allegiance and invocation, and our Pledge of Allegiance is going to be led by Melvin, our director of our library.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is Nolan Graham, student pastor from True Vine Pentecostal Church here? If not, I would please ask Councilmember Holliday to lead us in the invocation.
Please rise and pray with me. Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. Thank you for bringing us all here safely. Thank you for allowing us to do the city business, the work for our residents. We ask that you open our hearts and minds for everyone here to what you would have us do and have all our actions be honoring and glorifying to you. We ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Madam City Clerk?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We moving on to presentations?
Yes, please.
Okay. We have the Norris Performance Arts Center tap dance team. And so if I can have them kindly come up, you'll see that they are here.
You want us to stand?
Yes, right up here.
Yeah. She's going to read the certificate for you folks.
We're really, really proud of you, young ladies. What you have accomplished is amazing, and we wanted to recognize you. So we have a certificate of recognition signed by your entire council here. It's awarded to the Norris Performing Arts Center tap dance team. On behalf of the city of Murrieta, we are pleased to congratulate the Norris Performing Arts Center tap dance team on their gold medal success in 2024 World Tap Dance Championship held in Prague. Your dedication and determination are inspirational. We applaud you in your continued pursuit of creating a team of Murrieta and surrounding community members that foster creativity, arts, and sportsmanship, and we wish you continued success in all your future competitions and endeavors. And like I said, this is signed by your entire council, and we just wanted to recognize you here tonight and say congratulations. We're so very proud of you. And if I could have my colleagues come down, we'd like to take a picture with these awesome gold medalists. It's always a good feeling when we know we have great students and athletes and artistic kids in our community, and look how far they took it. That's just amazing to me. What an accomplishment. You're welcome. Thank you for coming down tonight. We appreciate it. At this time, we'll do the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? Seeing none, may I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda? I have a first by Councilmember Holliday and a second by Mayor Pro Tem, my apologies, sir, Mayor Pro Tem Lavelle. Please vote.
Motion carries unanimously, 5-0.
Thank you. Moving on, City Manager, may we have your update?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do have a number of regular updates this evening, but before we get to that, we're excited to recognize a really meaningful contribution to one of our community's most important projects, the Murrieta Public Library Children's a library expansion. So I understand that you will introduce this on my behalf.
Oh, it is my
Madam Mayor.
pleasure. It is my pleasure. As you may know, this project will create a vibrant and engaging space for children and families designed to inspire learning, imagination, and connection. It is a cornerstone of our vision to invest in the future of Murrieta. And today, the Murrieta Public Library Foundation is honored to receive a generous donation of $5,000 from the Professional Women's Roundtable nonprofit organization. The Professional Women's Roundtable has a longstanding reputation for empowering women and giving back to our community. Please, oh, they've already come down, that is great. They're going to present a check. Well, this one you cannot cash at the ATM, but I'm sure there'll be a smaller version. Present a check to Murrieta Public Library Foundation, which will be accepted by Foundation President, Mr. Kevin Kuhn. Ladies? Let's go down here and, there we go. You can go to that mic if you want. Yeah, just move right up to there. There you go.
Professional Women's Roundtable is always looking for opportunities to serve this valley, and so when we found out about the opportunity to support the Murrieta Public Library expansion of their children's area, it was a unanimous and very excited decision to do so. So with that being said, we would like to present you with this check for $5,000.
And then I'm going to bring council down and we'll all take a picture. If that's okay? Well, why don't we come on down?
Come on down.
Come on down.
Come on down.
Come on down. I know, I'm the little one. Remember. Thank you so very, very much. Oh, that was great. Thank you. This is awesome. Okay, where's the little check?
That's in the mail. There's supposed to be a little check?
Did you want to make a comment? Okay, all right. Mr. Kuhn would like to make a comment. I give him the floor for a minute.
Okay. Just wanted to say how much we appreciate this donation. It's really meaningful to this project. Without donations like this, we won't see, the ending that we want. And so we're just really, really excited on behalf of the Library Foundation, the city, all of our residents here today and future residents. It's a big, big deal. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professional Women's Roundtable. And let's see more of these donations coming in. Thank you. A lot of whispering going on up here. City Manager, I'm going to bring it back to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So for some of our regular updates tonight, we've invited the Newman Hospitality Group to come up and talk to us a little bit about the SoCal Jazz and Blues Fest, May 16th through 18th. Very exciting there. They will be followed by Fire Chief Bernie Malloy, who's going to talk to us a little bit about the new fire hazard severity zone maps, followed by Public Works Director Bob Mailing, who's going to talk to us about the Keller Interchange update and the Winchester Road ramp closures, followed by Public Information Officer Christina Davies, who's going to give us a community update.
Newman Hospitality would like to come on up.
Hi, it's nice to see you.
It's good to see you guys. And thank you so much for having us out tonight.
Of course.
We're really excited to kick off the 2025 season of festivals here at the amphitheater. I feel like 2024 was a great year. We had a lot of fun. We tried to bring in a mix of genres. We had jazz, blues, rock, and the Country Fest. So we're kicking this season off in about 30 days. coming up May 16th. So it's coming up very quick, and it's going to be our Jazz and Blues Festival, and then we will have our Country Music Festival following that in October. But we have, or no, September. My brain is out there. But we've put together a little video showing some highlights of last year, and it also shows some of the artists that we have coming up in May.
Well, come on, let's go, little darling. Tell me that you never leave me. Come on, let's go. Again and again and again. Well, now swing me way down. Come on, let's go, little darling. Let's go again once more. Well, I love you so, baby, and I'll never let you go. Come on, baby, so oh, pretty baby, I love you. You make me so very happy. Que necesito una poca de gracia. Silence, roaring lion. I'm taking the devil down.
Black Pontiac with a pocket of cash, foot on the gas, ready and throwing up a little dust like a pickup truck does in the mud, but ain't nobody slowing us down right now. She said, I need a little something with some get up and go, and nobody knows how to get me going quite like you do when you're doing the things that you do. Wanna give this sleepy poor town something to talk about. We were tail lights fading from some blue lights chasing, cut a path through the corn off County Road 44.
So we're excited, and we hope you all come.
Thank you so much. I know we all had a great time at all of them this past year. Welcome, Chief.
Welcome. I'm going to bring Fire Marshal
Oh.
Snyder up here. My technical
Welcome, sir.
Good evening, Mayor Warren and Council. Thank you for hearing us out this evening. We're here tonight, myself, Fire Chief Bernie Malloy, and Fire Marshal Doug Stroh-Snyder. We're here to present on the fire hazard severity maps. You may have seen recently on some news coverage that the state has released the first fire hazard severity zone map since 2008, the last time they released them. The state is required by statute to release these maps every 5 years, and these are the first ones we've actually had since 2008, and they're required to release them in both the state responsibility areas, those maps were released last year, and now the local responsibility areas are being released. So this is all of the municipalities throughout the state of California are getting their maps updated. This lives in Government Code 51178. That's not important, but what it is important to understand is there are regulations about how we go about the process of adopting these maps. This government code requires that the state identify now moderate, high, and very high fire severity zones. We used to only have very high fire severity zones outlined. So now we're going to have 3 zones where we used to only have 1 zone. We're going to see some changes in these maps, which we'll see shortly, but the state does all of this work. They base this work on scientific data, which is topography, fuel types, embercasting, to map hazards in our area. We do not have any input into these maps through this process. The state gives us these maps, and we are left with them to adopt. So looking at this map, and you can log online and see a better view of this, but just for the point of presentation up here, what we have is the green hashed area are the old very high fire severity zone. Remember, we only used to have 1 zone. Now we have 3 zones. The changes are in the red is very high fire severity zone. I guess it's yellowish is going to be the high fire severity zone, and the very yellow are the moderate severity zones. We saw incursion into some areas of our city, and we saw actually some areas of our city lose severity zone mapping. So some areas have come out of the fire hazard severity zone. In 2011, we had just over 9,000 acres in the very high fire severity zone, and now we are up to 9,758. So we've only had a 7.2% increase in these maps. I think both Fire Marshal Stroh-Snyder and I expected to have a much higher percent change. So we were actually happy to see only this much of a change coming in our community. There are other cities that have had over 50% increase in these maps. If we break this down by what we have, Murrieta is over 22,000 acres, which is about 35.5 square miles. We have 12,347 acres now living in some sort of classification of fire severity zone, be that moderate, high, or very high. And if you look at those, and I have the percentages here, so very high, that's 43% of our acreage is in a very high. High is 5.9%, and the moderate is 5.4%. And again, you see on the bottom the percent change there of about 7.2% increase overall. So this government code requires us to show these maps and take public comment within 30 days of having the maps delivered. Our maps were delivered in all of Southern California on March 24th, so we have had these maps up on our website since then. And once we have these maps up, we have to receive public comment. That public comment is directed to us, and then we bring it forward when we actually do the map adoption. However, what's important to note is that this public comment it comes to us, and we cannot use it to make any changes to these maps. These maps are given to us, they're written in stone by the state. There's no way for us to make any changes to these. The code does require that after we do this 30 days of public comment, that we adopt these maps within 120 days of them being released. So you will see this in further map adoptions. All of the public comment will be included as we bring these maps forward for adoption. But again, we're regulated to adopt the maps as they are, even if there's public comment saying that the residents do not want it to be adopted in the form that it is. So with that, we have a couple of QR codes up here. So you can view the map on the left side, and our public comment where we're hosting it's on the right side. Or you can just simply go to the City of Murrieta's webpage. There's a pop-up on the page now. That is how you can click to get directly to these maps. And you can go to the fire department's webpage that's dealing with the maps, and it's hosting both the map and the public comments. And that is the end of my report.
Can I ask one question, please? How did they come up with the map? How did they come up with the lines? Did they just say, okay, here we go, and they just drew them wherever they wanted to?
No,
it seems that way.
I can tell you what we've been told, right? We did not develop these maps. We are not in the office of those that are developing the maps. They're using current fire modeling to develop these maps, and they're modeling hazards, not risk. There's a difference there. And what they use is what we've been told, they're using fuel types, topography, weather patterns, ember casting based on the fuel types that would be involved in a fire. They're putting all of that information together, compiling the data, and then the maps are built out of fire modeling from there.
So they don't know if there's a house there that they're dividing in half. They don't know if there's a school there. They just look at the area and then they draw these lines. Is that correct?
They take land use into consideration in the maps, or so we've been told. And I think we see that with our maps. You saw a part of the city that wasn't very developed, that was now fully developed, and it came off. So there is some land use consideration, but again, we don't have insight into the black box that's making the determination on these maps. One thing you will note, these maps do not look at the parcel layer underneath them. So there are parcels that have very high and moderate in the same parcel and are split in two, essentially. And that's to be expected because they're going to draw a line somewhere and not look specifically at the parcel that lies underneath it.
Nope, we're good. Thank you so much. Hi.
Good evening, Mayor Warren, council members, city staff, and members of the audience. I just want to say my wife and I both attended both the Jazz Festival and the Country Music Festival. Unfortunately, you did not see me dancing up there on those videos, so that was good on their part. But I really enjoyed both of those events. I encourage everyone to go out there. Just wanted to give you a quick update on a couple Caltrans projects in the area. One is our Keller Road Interchange project, which will, when approved, will provide on and off access ramps at Keller Road on the 215. It's a mile south of Scott Road and about a mile and a half north of Clinton Keith Road. So we're in a critical period. I know we talked in a workshop about a bulletproof environmental document. That's what we're trying to get with Caltrans. So we started this process in June of 2024 with our first submittal of our draft environmental document. We're now into our fourth draft, and we are getting Caltrans comments by the end of April. We assume they're going to be very minor and hopefully have an approved draft environmental document that we can then put out on the street, send it to the state clearinghouse, and have a 40-day review period, take in public comments, address those comments, and have a final environmental document by September 1st of this year. What that allows us to do at that point, we can then start looking at acquiring right-of-way in the area. We'll look at all those parcels that are impacted by the interchange. The current alternative that we're supporting is the roundabout, similar to what you see out in Cabazon out by the Morongo Casino. It's a similar type of configuration. It's not a large on and off ramps. It's just two traffic circles that will take traffic on and off and allow direct access to the areas in that area, considering the Kaiser Permanente facility, the Loma Linda facility, much quicker access for both police, fire, any type of emergency access to those facilities. So, like I said, the only thing that's concerning to me is we're a partner in this with Caltrans. So they have the final sign off on the environmental document, and it's something that we don't control. We don't control their personnel, so we submit things. We thought we'd have a couple-week turnaround. It actually is about a 4-week turnaround on this final draft of what we consider as a good document, but we want that bulletproof document. They don't want liability when they put something out on the street. I understand that, so that's why we're taking such a meticulous look at this document. So bottom line, if we can get started with right-of-way acquisition September of this year, we're trying to go out to construction in the January 1st of 2027. We expect to open traffic on that facility at Keller Road and 215 sometime in 2027. In between the right-of-way acquisition, we got about another additional $4 million from the WRCOG. I asked for it at our last TAC meeting and zone meeting for additional money for right-of-way acquisition. At that time, I'll go looking for some of those checks, the big checks from RCTC, WRCOG, different transportation groups. Also the city of Menifee. The city of Menifee has the northwest quadrant of this project. We should be asking them for funding for this project. So I'd like to start those comments. I think we actually, Ron and I, Councilman Harley had that same conversation about their quarter of that facility. They have a specific plan on Ziders Road coming forward. It's going to put traffic on that facility. Why not? They should be a partner with that. So
I started that conversation at the breakfast with city managers with one of the Menifee council members.
Thank you for doing that. It's a good seed to plant. So
I should note that if you put an apartment project in one of the clover leaves, you wouldn't have to do this, CEQA.
The state couldn't stop you, could they? But so that is my update. Like I said, we're looking at construction in that area sometime in 2027. It's going to be a short 12-month process. So we're hoping to have that facility open to public, open to traffic by the end of 2027. That's my update. Yeah, fingers crossed, working with Caltrans as a partner. We actually have a meeting on May 1st with Catalino Pining, who's the actual director of Caltrans District 8. So State Senator Kelly Sarto reached out for us as a city last November. We had a meeting with his direct staff, all the directors up at Caltrans. That was very helpful. We had another meeting, I believe it was in January, February this year. Now this is our next meeting. Hopefully have good news coming out of that meeting. Provide a real productive meeting May 1st with District 8 and go forward from there. So that's my update for Keller, if there's any questions.
Oh, thank you so very much. We're very excited.
The other project is in our neighboring city of the south, Temecula. The French Valley Parkway Phase 2, after 2 years of construction, is about ready to open. But in order to do that, they have to have one more closure of the on-ramps at Winchester Road to the northbound 15. So not this weekend, but next weekend, the 25th, which is a Friday night, starting at 6 p.m., they'll shut down all access from Winchester Road to the northbound 215. They'll keep it closed the entire weekend. On Monday morning, I believe at 6 a.m., they'll open up the new configuration. They're actually tying in the ramps to these new collector lanes you'll see on the east side of the freeway starting that day. And hopefully starting that night, you'll see a direct impact to the traffic and have much more better flowing traffic efficiently up the 15 to the split between the 15 to 15. At that time, once you get out of Winchester Road, you'll stay in the collector lanes and you'll actually go directly to either the 15 northbound or the 215 northbound, either on the underpass for the 215 or the flyover for the 15 that enters the 15 just south of Hot Springs Road. So that'll be the true test come Monday, April 28th, when people are driving home from San Diego County to get back to their lovely homes here, to see what that traffic does do. You know, fingers crossed again on that. You know, this is supposed to stop all that blending of traffic and weaving of everyone from the 15 to 15 as they come up. And hopefully hopefully it's going to impact the residents of Murrieta and in the neighboring cities and actually be a win-win for everybody involved. So I think everyone's excited about that. 2 years didn't seem like it was that long of a period of time. It doesn't seem like it was 2 years ago it started, but they had fortunate weather, I think, in most cases. But it's just a lot to construct a project. And I believe the price tag on that was $128 million, and that was 2 years ago when they opened those bids. So just be ready on Yanez to Jackson and Jefferson Avenue for that weekend. There'll be a little bit of extra traffic, but I think it's one more weekend, and then we should be able to be back to normal, hopefully a new normal. And that's my update on French Valley Phase 2.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good news.
Welcome.
Everyone sat here, so I feel like I have to sit here now.
You can be different. You can come up here if you want to.
I never get the chance to sit here, so I feel quite great right here. So just a note on that, we have been sharing on social media about the closure because Temecula has been posting about it. So we've been making sure that that's being shared on the City of Murrieta social accounts so residents are aware of the closure. So I'm going to be talking about what is going on in Murrieta. Well, if you were in Murrieta or in Southern California yesterday, you may have felt that earthquake unless you were driving. I was actually on the road, did not feel it, but my phone was going off, and because I have my Shake app and then of course the emergency alerts on my phone. So after, I just wanted to put this in here to do a little bit of a shout out and make sure that you guys are aware that after this happened, we did do communication from the city. It was a coordinated effort with PD and fire. So thank you to PD and fire. But we got social media updated. We put it on the website, and we were focusing on earthquake preparedness and emergency preparedness. So we wanted to make sure that after this happened, residents, it's kind of that reminder to be prepared because we do live in Southern California. And we do have earthquakes. And so we just wanted residents also to be prepared. So we notified residents, we utilized the website, we utilized the newsflash portion of the website. So people who are subscribed got an alert on their phone as well for just this emergency preparedness information. So it was a coordinated effort, but I do want to make sure that fire and PD do get a shout out because it was extremely helpful to have that coordinated effort. And we also did internal email thanks to fire. So on that note, though, the fun stuff that is happening in Murrieta, not shaking around, we have upcoming events. We have our egg extravaganza, and that's happening on April 19th. They have 12,000 eggs that are going to be on the lawn at Town Square Park. The time varies, it goes by age. So if you are watching on social media or if you have any kiddos out in the audience right now, come on April 19th where you can get a lot of eggs and maybe some candy. And then later on, well, going into May, we're going to be having our Memorial Day service at Town Square Park, and still working on getting the time for that, but it is going to be on our website and on the calendar. And as always, I like to, remind people, we want to stay connected, stay up to date. If you want to get notifications from the city, like we did yesterday after the earthquake, go to this page, murrietaca.gov/connect, and sign up for our alerts. Thanks. Any questions?
Nope.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That concludes my administrative updates.
Thank you so very much. Great updates, everybody. Now is the time for our governing body reports. It's an opportunity for City Council to provide a brief report on conferences, seminars, commissions, committee, and board meetings. Also, in addition to that, we will do our governing body announcement, where the City Council provides miscellaneous reports and announcements that they attended throughout the community within the last couple of weeks. Reports shall not exceed 5 minutes, and our city clerk will use the computerized timer. We will start with Councilmember DeForest.
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor. Well, I forgot to send my official, but I'll just shout out to Murrieta Fireman's Barbecue, which was amazing, a lot of fun. I've served more tri-tip than I think I ever did before, and people were so happy. It was a great event, so kudos to that. It's always so much fun to see everybody out. I think it was one of the biggest barbecues to date. There were people everywhere. So, and then after that, I got to attend the air show at March Air Force Base. Thank everyone for their service in our military. It was an amazing event. We saw the Thunderbirds there, and they were incredible. But the best thing I thought was the F-35A, which was flown by a young woman, and she was a rock star. So she did Mach 1 across the tarmac. So that was amazing. So also, I've had exciting, riveting meeting with budget. Thank you so much, Javier, for all the fun, and Jennifer. That was very, very informative, and thank you so much for that. And then I did get to do, which was quite a lot of fun with our mayor, coffee with the city. Great fun, talking also about planning and development and housing. So thanks to everyone. My email and my phone number are always available. If you want a faster response, you can send me a text. So thank you so much for the time, Madam Mayor.
Very welcome. I can't push the button for some reason. Councilmember Stone, you're up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I attended the WRCOG meeting last Monday, and it's represented, I think, by 24 cities. And we had an opportunity to nominate someone or an organization from our community that will be highlighted at their General Assembly in June, and I nominated a nonprofit here in Murrieta called Cultivating Inclusion. They're a public-private partnership. They do a community garden where they have the special needs adults come, plant, pick, and 100% of the fruits and vegetables are donated to our food pantry. So I'm very, very honored that they chose out of all three Cultivating Inclusion. Mayor Pro Tem Lavelle and I sit on the Homeless Ad Hoc Committee, and we spent many hours with our outreach team. Brian, to you and Lindsay, just amazing work that you all are doing. We saw firsthand a drone. We were in the Murrieta Creek, and we saw the operations of a drone and how intricate that is. And there's a public safety component to this drone, and it detects, body heat. So it's a protection for them to identify whether somebody is in an encampment before they approach the encampment. And there's a lot of other things that they do with this drone, but it was very, very impressive, Brian. And then with regards to identifying the chronic homeless, our team knows every chronic homeless person that lives in our city. And I bet you don't even see a chronic homeless person on our streets visually, because our team is implementing either emergency shelter, transitional, or permanent housing, which is coming available in June. So kudos to our homeless outreach team. In addition, there's an organization called the Empowerment Center, and they had a graduation. It's the second time I was their keynote speaker, and these are frontline behavior health advocates. And I was just honored for the second time to be their keynote speaker. And Mayor Pro Tem Lavelle joined me, who also has partnered with me on advocating for mental health services and resources in our valley. And then lastly, I was at the firefighters barbecue, and I just wanted to thank our firefighters and all that they do. Chief, it was really an amazing. The weather was so perfect that day. I loved the dunk tank. Was that new this year, the dunk tank? No,
I was new in the dunk.
Well, you were, yes, I heard that, John Lavelle. Yeah, thanks, yes. So it was amazing. The music was amazing. The energy was in the room. And I don't know what it was this year, but the tri-tip was over the top. It was really, really amazing, so kudos. And I did attend the air show at March Air Base, and it was very, very interesting to hear one of the commanders talk about since 9/11, the base is closed to the public. They spent about $800,000 for this event, and it is a community event. This allows our communities, our region, our county to come on base, to have tours, and understand what the base is all about. It's an educational component. So kudos to the March Air Base and a very, very successful event. He told me that there was probably 500,000 people in the 2.5 days that attend this event. So for the rest of my governing body announcements, you can go to the website and review all of my meetings and everything that I attended. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. Moving on to Councilmember Holliday.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also attended a lot of the same things. I did go to the Boys and Girls Club Great Futures Breakfast. As far as the boards I sit on, I attended the Regional Conservation Authority, or RCA. They had nothing to report out of that meeting. It was actually like a 20-minute meeting. It drove 40 minutes each way for a 20-minute meeting, which is really rare, but that's good. And the Tour de Murrieta, which I know we were all at as well. Had fun watching the kids race. That's always exciting to watch those kids race. They do great. Murrieta Police Department swearing in, the Chamber Job Fair. The couple I'd like to highlight, breakfast with the city managers. Ladies and gentlemen, this man is a rock star. He did phenomenal. The first two city managers got up, it's like, okay, I need a pillow. And then Justin got up and brought the tempo up and the right amount of information in the right amount of time, and I thought he was better than all the rest. So I want to give you kudos for that. And then I think I've got a couple pictures up there. That is the F-35A on the left side of that screen. And the other picture, the atmospheric conditions were just right, that when certain fighters would pull enough G's, it would form clouds above their wings. And that's what you see in that other picture, if you can see it. So it was really cool to watch. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Holliday. Mayor Pro Tem LaBelle.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually get to say something that Lori missed. I usually am the one who misses things, but Lori and I, because we sit on the homeless committee, got to go to Temecula, and we got to meet with a couple, one elected person and their city staff to talk about, let's just say, some differences in our homeless program, what we're doing, what's happening, and what they were doing, kind of what's happening. And I can't express enough how impressed I am with the collaborative services we have that wrap around every possible avenue you could help a homeless person with. And so it was a privilege to sit at that table and unpack to the room just how different and special our program was. So had a great time doing that. And also went with Ms. Stone to witness firsthand. I can say that the reason you do not see homeless people that don't have resources in the city is because of the efforts of Brian and his team, and I just publicly thank them. And what they are going to be doing with the recent grant from the county going forward is going to be even more impressive to watch unpack and unfold for the future. And it's going to be even better for the homeless population to have those services and get help in even better ways. I went to the breakfast with the city managers, and I will echo Mr. Holliday's comments. Our city was most impressive by way of Justin's presentation. I mean, down to the shoes he was wearing. In a comparative analysis, I mean, you knocked it out of the park, and I couldn't have been more proud to be part of this city, and you certainly made it very evident. So thank you for representing well and leading from the front. And the barbecue, mentioned that I got to dunk our fire chief. I will mention, I didn't stand at the line that you're supposed to throw it from. I actually took probably 10, 12 feet back. It was impressive. And I threw it as hard as I could to make sure he got in, and it worked. It was the best $5 I spent that day. I would have sat there all day before if I didn't get you in. I would have spent my whole paycheck. Tour de Murrieta, great event. I look forward to seeing that continue to bring great benefit and exposure to the city for something that Ernie and his team have done well for 20 years. It's really cool to see people outside using their bodies, exercising, having fun in our city and doing it at the highest professional level of that sport. So awesome there. And a little fun fact, I heard the F-35 mentioned twice. Did you know that that was the first airplane I got to work on as a F-35 manufacturing engineer when I worked for Northrop Grumman at Rancho Bernardo? Wow. 15 years ago.
Very good.
And that's all I got.
And it's still flying. That's, you know, that's the iffy.
Everything works.
Thank you so very much. Move over to me. I wanted to let you know that you, Councilmember DeForest and I attended a Zoom meeting with Congressman Isa's Chief of Staff via Zoom, so we were asking for our appropriations, what used to be called earmarks, so that Murrieta gets their fair share of federal money in for our infrastructure, Keller Road, and other items that are very important to the public safety of this community. It was well received. We'll be meeting with them again next week, I believe, and dialing in a few more things, so we're excited about that. I attended the RCTC April meeting, and I want to highlight one area of it. I know that everybody has a cell phone, but call boxes are now going to be gone. It was a very difficult decision for many people to vote this contract, and there was a sunset on this contract, and we're up to that sunset right now. These call boxes are pretty much obsolete. The calls that were coming in for them were not as many as we've had over the years. In fact, we have to remove them so that they don't become a liability for the county at the tune of $149,888 to remove all these call boxes. But what we are going to do is we're going to, and the reason that we're doing this, there's one contractor for the entire state, and they are not doing their job. So when a call box breaks or doesn't work, they're supposed to be in there, fix it within 48 hours, and it's not happening. And they said they don't want to maintain them any longer, so there is not a vendor to do that. So we are going to sunset the program. We're going to remove all the call boxes within the Riverside County area, as is Los Angeles, as is San Francisco, San Bernardino. Everybody is doing this. There's one vendor who's not doing his job. And we're going to explore other options and improve the cell, do our best to improve the cell connection within those rural areas going out to the desert. And that's where they're used the most. And so, but still the call volumes is less than one every 3 days. So, and most of them just wanted free service. They didn't want to pay for a tow truck. So I wanted to let you know that that is going to start happening, and they will be phasing out starting in June. And the rest of the report will be on the website of the items that we did pass, but I wanted to highlight that. On my governing body announcements, I intended a ribbon cutting for Mission Hope, and it's a home that they purchased in the Winchester area. And the family that's going to this home for 2 years, they were visiting from Arizona, and the wife had a sudden illness and has been in the hospital for 2 years. And they've had to uproot their world and come to California. And they went through housing, hotels, and then they went through Project Touch. Now they're into a home. It's a dad and 4 kids. The mom is still in the hospital undergoing rehabilitation. And now they have a place to plant their feet and get situated for the next 2 years, so then they can move forward as their family member gets better. And this is what Mission Hope does, and I was just so proud to be a part of that grand opening to give a family hope, and that's just exciting to me. I attended many other things that everybody else did. Great mixer by the Chamber of Commerce with the Murrieta Day Spa and Murrieta VIP floors. Fun, lightning, thunder, rain. It was a great all-around time. I also attended the park opening at Monte Vista Park. We have several new parks with new play equipment, and one of the play equipment's on this park. We all went down the slide, and we all got stuck in one turn. We got out, though, you can see. But there's a merry-go-round, and our Director of Economic Development was pushing it. So Lori Stone and I got on it, and we figured we could just stay there all day long and watch him run around. It was so much fun. These new equipments are so fun. And Leah, you did a great job on, she's in the back, on developing this along with the commission. This is a rocket ship type theme, and it is just a blast, and it's for all needs. There's even a ramp where a wheelchair can go on, and it's a merry-go-round that they can push. The merry-go-round in a wheelchair can be there, and a young child or an adult can have fun at the park, and it was just so much fun. So that was a great way to start our morning, I'll tell you that. The other thing I wanted to also highlight, great job, Justin. We were so proud of you at the breakfast for the city managers. You did knock it out of the park. And Patrick, on the quick pitch, that innovation center, that was really lots of fun. And we have a new company that is a startup that is going to go on to the Riverside quick pitch. Is that correct? And that'll be this month as well. She won $1,500, so she's going on, hoping to win $1 million down the road. So let's hope she does well. And something that is very important to me, National Crime Victims' Rights Week is where they, in Riverside, they have a candlelight vigil, and we read the names of those that had lost their lives due to crime. And it's the most sad but wonderful way to remember people, but it's hard. And I had the honor, didn't want it, but I had the honor of saying out loud Adam Bouvet's name, and a dear friend of all of us. And so that was a privilege to be able to say that. Barbecue was awesome. And no, I'm not going in the dunk tank at any time soon. And the air base was just fabulous. So that concludes my report. Thank you. Moving on. Let's see, where are we?
Public comments.
I do believe we are at public comments. Thank you very much. Any persons may address the governing bodies on any subject pertaining to city business. Normally, no action may be considered or taken by the governing bodies on any matter not listed on the agenda. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Madam City Clerk, do we have any public comments?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Stephen James.
Welcome, Mr. James.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. The reason for me being here tonight has to do with an investigation that I had the police do on an incident at my own home with my own child. We got the results. Supposed to have been 6 months, took 8. It is the worst investigation piece of document I've ever seen in my life, being a retired cop. I don't know how the chief could accept it. All it says is unfounded. There is no synopsis, there's no summary, there's no contact. How does this happen? And like I said, to me, it just blows my mind. And so now we have to look at things and seek relief in other ways. My son tried to get a copy of the report. He was told he'd have to attain a subpoena, get any copy of any type of report with his name on it. It's, again, we'll fight later. So seeking relief, we have no other recourse now but to go through the courts, to look at the Department of Justice, Office of Civil Rights, to come in and take a deep dive and to find out what is really going on with the police department. Like I said, it pains me, being retired as a cop, to have to look at a police department. I started talking to individuals. I have a doctor from USC. I'm a researcher. I go out and I talk. And when I talk to people, I ask, what type of adjectives would you use when you refer to any encounter that you had with the Murrieta Police Department? First one that came up, arrogant. Next, unapproachable. Untruthful. Lack of follow-through or action, and full of excuses on why they can't do something. Is that what we want in a police department? Is that truly what we want? Did I want to have to take this to the courts? I did not, okay? But they've left us, when you look at this document, this little document that just says unfounded 7 times, no explanation, all right? Nothing. When I was interviewed with the 2 detectives or the sergeants, the one that interviewed me was a good man. The other guy was as arrogant as you could possibly be. I had never seen anything like that in my life. He was standoffish, had his arms crossed most of the time, and I couldn't believe it. And then finally, my wife's going to talk about certain things, but can we do something with the traffic? I'm tired of getting honked at for coming to a complete and full stop at a stop sign or a red light. You know, I've almost witnessed several where I've stopped to wait for people to cross the road, turning right, and someone's gone around me and almost hit them. It's time to hold some folks accountable. Yes, that's the police department's job. I know there's a lot of things going on these days, but I went to traffic many years ago. I thought I had one of those cool boots. I wrote 40 tickets a day. All right, I wrote a lot of traffic warnings. I had a lot of conversations as well without writing a ticket, okay? And that can be done as well. We got to get it out there, but also, again, it pains me to have to go through the courts in this situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam City Clerk?
Ruthie James.
Hello.
Hi again. I'm going to stand by my husband and reiterate, it was hard to read that letter. In fact, I really read it for the first time today. We haven't shared it with our son yet. We know it's not going to be a great situation for any of us in the coming weeks. I would like you to think about if it were your child, and I don't care how old your children are, they're your children. And to not have any words other than the legal BS that we got is irreprehensible. And I'm a dog with a bone. It has been said many times. I'm not going to let this go. This is not going to happen to somebody else's child because they lost my child. And no one's going to stand up and say, hey, maybe we did something wrong there. They lost him. They had the audacity to call me twice and that day when we didn't know where he was and say nothing to me about they didn't take him where they were going to take him. So we're not done. On a whole nother note, can I just say I have been a proud member of this Murrieta community for 25 years. I've lived in the same house this long. I would like to meet the person that got the slurry seal job because they can come and clean my driveway and my garage. It's disgusting. It looks like ghetto. It is ghetto. The black stuff's everywhere. It's coming into my new wood floor. It's everywhere. The street cleaner comes. They have no water in that tank because you can just see the dust flying all over the street. So this really needs to be looked at. I know they've gotten a lot of complaints about it. I don't know who, like this was super budget, but it's like driving on a gravel road. And hopefully they don't ever do this again because it's ghetto. It's seriously ghetto. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam City Clerk?
That concludes public comments, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We'll move on to the consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar are considered routine and may be enacted by one motion and vote. There will be no discussion of these items unless specific items are removed from the consent calendar for a separate motion. Are there any requests from City Council to pull any consent calendar item for discussion or abstain from voting? Seeing none. Madam City Clerk, are there any members of the public requesting to speak on a consent calendar item?
Seeing none.
May I please have a motion and a second? I have a motion by Councilmember DeForest and a second by Councilmember Holliday. Please vote.
Motion carries unanimously, 5-0.
Thank you. At this time, we will be going to a public hearing for fiscal year 2025-26 Public Facilities Development Impact Fee Update. We will now move on to the public hearing. Are there any council members who would like to recuse themselves from this item? Seeing none? Did you want to say anything? Okay. All right. Great. Welcome. Staff, may we have your report?
Yeah, good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council members, and members of the public. Javier Carcamo, Director of Finance, and Jennifer Terry, our Finance Manager, And tonight we're going to go ahead and provide you with a report and presentation on the fiscal year 2025-26 Development Impact Fee Update. Jennifer is going to start off with a presentation, and I'll come back later in the presentation to finish it off.
I'll start with a little bit of background. What is a development impact fee? A development impact fee, or DIF, is a one-time fee charged to all new developments to mitigate the impact caused by that new development on city facilities. DIF fees are imposed before permit issuance for commercial or industrial projects. And for residential projects, those are now due before a certificate of occupancy or final inspection due to recent state changes. DIF fees are imposed on all development projects within a defined geographic area. In our case, all of our DIF fees are calculated citywide. DIF fees fund facilities to serve new developments. A very basic concept is when new homes are built, we have more people in our community, which creates an increase of park usage, resulting in the need to build more parks. So just a very basic concept of why we collect DIF fees. Our impact fee categories include law enforcement, and we have 9 of them. Law enforcement, fire protection, streets, minor bridges and culverts, traffic signals, storm drains, general facilities for City Hall, park facilities, community centers, and the public library. This table was extracted from our fiscal year 24-25 capital improvement budget and lists all of the funding types used to fund our capital improvement projects. As you can see, the city relies heavily on development impact fees to fund our capital improvements. DIF funds make up 40% of all of our revenue sources. Some of the planned projects that will be utilizing DIF funds include the fire protection DIF, which is collected for the fire department to fund a future regional training center, permanent facility for Fire Station 5, and a construction of Fire Station 6 and a garage bay. It will also fund the vehicles associated with Station 6, including a Type 1 fire engine, a medic patrol rescue truck, an all-terrain Polaris vehicle, and a Type 3 brush truck, and upfitting for each of these vehicles. For the law enforcement DIF, which is collected for police department, they will fund the police station expansion, as well as a portion of the shared regional training center. And community services department, they have new parks and increase in services at existing parks. The library expansion, hot topic today, DIF funds are helping to fund that expansion, as well as future book lockers and a mobile library, and new CSD offices for those staff members. And I'll turn it over to Javier now.
Thank you. So I'm going to provide a brief background on the adoption of the 2024 Nexus Study and updated fees. So AB 602, which took effect on January 1st, 2022, requires that a development impact fee nexus study be completed at least every 8 years. It also introduces new requirements, including a specific justification on how fees are calculated and the use of square footage-based fees for residential development instead of a per unit charges. On February 20, 2024, staff presented the DIF study and the proposed fee update to the City Council during the workshop, where we received public comments and direction from Council. Subsequently, on April 16, 2024, the City Council adopted resolutions approving the development impact fees next study and an update to the fee schedule. The adoption also included an administrative policy which includes the following components: a grandfathered clause, a 3-year phase-in period, and an annual escalator. The new fees and administrative policy took effect on July 1st, 2024. The administrative policy includes a 3-year phase-in plan specifically for industrial and office development impact fees. Industrial DIF will increase by approximately $1.02 per square foot for each fiscal year, beginning July 1st, 2024, and continuing through July 1st, 2026. Office DIF will increase by approximately $1.54 per square foot annually over the same period. In addition to the phase-in plan, the policy includes a grandfather clause that allow eligible projects to pay the existing DIF rate established by the 2016 DIF study, for which projects must meet certain criteria. Let me go back here, one more. The policy also establishes an annual fee adjustment based on the California Construction Cost Index. The index will be evaluated on a January to January basis with any increase capped at 4%. This annual adjustment applies to all fee types, including those subject to the phase-in schedule. So as a recap of what I just said in terms to the phase-in for office and industrial, this table summarizes the 3-year phase-in approach as follows. The 2016 industrial DIF was $1.63 per square foot. The adopted 2024 DIF is $4.68 per square foot, resulting in an annual increase of approximately $1.02 or $1.02 over the 3 years on an annual basis. The 2016 office DIF was $8.99 per square foot. The adopted 2024 DIF is $13.60 per square foot, with an annual increase of approximately $1.54 over the 3 years. This table summarizes the California Construction Cost Index over the past 5 years. The index showed a 2.4% increase from January to January, which will be applied to the development impact fees. As a result, the DIF update effective July 1st, 2025 includes a 2.4% increase based on the CCCI adjustment. Lastly, this table summarizes the fee update effective July 1st, 2025, incorporating both the 3-year phase-in plan and the annual escalation policy. The proposed development impact fees per square foot are as follows. Residential, $9.19 per square foot, an increase of 22 cents. Multifamily going up to $13.02 per square foot, an increase of 31 cents. Office is $12.35 per square foot, an increase of $1.82, and this is due to is subject to both the phase-in and also the annual escalation. Commercial is $13.27 per square foot, an increase of 31 cents. And lastly, industrial at $3.75 per square foot, an increase of $1.11, subject to both the phase-in and the annual escalation. And with that, today's report and recommendation to City Council is to adopt a resolution number 25-4827 entitled A Resolution of the City Council of the City of Murrieta, California, approving an update of Public Facilities Development Impact Fee Schedule and amending the city's fee schedule for fiscal year 2025-26. And with that concludes our presentation, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I will now take questions from the council, and we will start with Councilmember Holliday.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A bit of cleanup item before I get to my questions. Back when we first adopted this, the subsequent meeting, I requested reconsideration, which I had a second and was approved. I had some concerns with the grandfathering plan. After talking with staff, various developer representatives, and most recently the Builders Industry Association, or BIA, I would like to make a motion to withdraw that reconsideration.
I have a motion on the floor to withdraw that reconsideration. Do I have a second? I'll second it. Do I have a second by me? Any discussion? Seeing none, City Clerk, would you please take a roll call vote, please?
Yes, and for clarification, who was the second from?
I was.
Thank you. Councilmember DeForest?
Yes.
Councilmember Stone?
Yes.
Councilmember Holliday?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lavelle?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously 5-0.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to your question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So the development impact fees, we had a workshop earlier tonight regarding the mandates, housing mandates that are passed down from the state to the cities, which give us little ability to do anything about them. And one of the biggest problems with those mandates, in addition to not being able to plan our community like we would like, is the impacts that those developments have on our city, one of the largest impacts being traffic and public safety and other things. So the development impact fee for these new developments is one way that we can raise money to offset some of those impacts. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And while nobody likes to pass on fees to make housing more expensive, we still need to provide good roads, good police, good fire in the community to maintain the quality of life that we've come to enjoy, which is why people move to Murrieta. So I would encourage my colleagues to vote for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Holliday. Councilmember Stone? Oh, turn your mic on.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can you go to the slide where it talks about fire and police, please? Thank you so much. I have a question for our city manager. And in our goals session meeting, the topic of the regional training center came up where I had requested to move that to tier 3. And Councilmember Holliday suggested we keep it at 2 with regards to how Mount San Jacinto would be stepping up to the plate. I'm curious why this is on the diff now.
Thank you for the question. These items were all introduced to the diff when the original study was conducted. Importantly, the methodology for areas like the police department were a current service level model. So the projects were identified, but the funds that are collected are actually available for those projects or others. And what we've seen over the course of time, especially in public safety, is our capital improvements plans and our long-range plans are relatively short-term. The time frame for DIF is longer. And so the funds are not limited to those. If, for instance, we didn't move forward with a public safety training facility, those funds would be available for other improvements associated with growth of the department. But they were included back when the original study was done, and no projects have been removed or added since then.
Okay, so at the time that this was presented, it was a cost of $20 million for a public safety training center. And my argument was that we have the Ben Clark Training Center right up the road that can handle everything our fire and our police need as far as training and resources. Have you done your due diligence to find out what those costs are to our city for them to train at the Ben Clark Training Center?
I don't have the answer to that question.
I think it's really important that my colleagues understand the significance of $20 million when we are being challenged in the next few years with regards to our budget. We need to expand currently our police department. We cannot even entertain being a dispatch for another city that is requesting probably us to dispatch for them because we don't have the room. We also need to build another fire station. And with regards to the housing workshop that we just had, we anticipate an extra 30,000 people that's going to be moving to our city. That's not part of our general plan, and that is from the mandates of the state of California. We have major infrastructure issues going on in our city right now with our roads, water, utilities. We just heard in our workshop that we need more planning staff. So with that said, and then Councilmember Holliday, you talked about just right now, you made a comment based on the mandates, more roads, more fire, more police, and also in addition to having police and fire on the ground, we need support staff to support our public safety. So $20 million by the time we raise the money to have a public training center, when we have, again, an agency just up the road, God knows what a public training center is going to cost us with the cost of living, the cost of goods. Now with the tariff situation that's happening, who knows what that's going to cost? And I believe that we have far more issues that we have to address here in our city. We have to be fiscally responsible, and I believe that that should not be on the DIF plan. That concludes my comments, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Moving on to Councilmember DeForest.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I ask the city manager a question? Just because the regional training center is on that doesn't necessarily mean that the money is directing to the regional training center primarily. Is that true?
That's correct, and I would just offer up that one of the conversations we had in exchange with the BIA was, given the methodology of maintaining a current service level, they were concerned that the fees we were collecting, only a portion of those fees were explained by existing projects, and the others were anticipated for future projects. So we went through an exercise where we gathered up a number of other important projects that aren't yet on the CIP, but that the police department knows are on the near horizon, within the time frame of the DIF. And those projects more than spoke to the revenue that would be generated by the DIF. So we're confident that even if we didn't complete the training center, that we do have other needs within public safety to utilize those DIF fees.
And could that be like getting rid of our current fire training next to an elementary school?
I mean, probably regardless of what we do, we need a tower in town. And in conversations with the fire chief, that would be really necessary, even if we didn't have the other components of the joint safety training facility. We've also talked about things like the ability for more rapid dispatch on the east side of town. That might not be a full-blown substation, but at some point it might be other facilities along those lines. Again, haven't been contemplated in our CIP yet, but are future needs for our public safety agencies.
Thank you for making that clear. I greatly appreciate that. I have a question. So a developer comes into our community and builds a project. If we didn't have a DIF fee, where would the money come to do improvements?
If there was no DIF component, the funding requirement likely will come from local monies.
So it'd come out of our general fund? All right. And what kind of impact would that have on our general fund?
Well,
approximate.
If we had no DIF today and we had all these projects that we had in our capital improvement plan, one of our slides shows approximately 40% of the entire source of revenues comes from DIF. And so that is approximately, let me go back to that list, $44.7 million.
Thank you for that. And I would just like to concur with Councilmember Holliday, and I would like to encourage the rest of my council to vote to continue this as well.
Thank you. Seeing no other speakers in for our council members, I'd like to open the public hearing. City Clerk, is there any public testimony?
Seeing none.
Thank you. I'll bring it back to deliberation. Any further deliberation? Seeing none, I'd like to close the public hearing and call for a motion and a second. I have a motion made by Councilmember DeForest and a second made by Councilmember Holliday. Please vote.
Motion carries 4-1 with Councilmember Stone dissenting.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to discussion item number 12, business license code revision related to appeals and advertising. Staff, may we please have a report?
Hi.
Hello.
Well, good evening again.
Again.
Honorable Mayor, City Council members, and members of the public. Javier Carcamo, Director of Finance. These reports and presentation aim to recommend amendments to Title V of the Murrieta Municipal Code relating to business license in an effort to streamline the administrative process for the issuance and revocation of a business license. Title V of the Murrieta Municipal Code regulates the issuance, collections, revocations, and appeal process related to business licenses in the city of Murrieta. In addition to, it provides general business regulations for other specific business types, including but not limited to bingo games, fortune-telling establishments, adult-oriented businesses, short-term vacation rentals, and tobacco and alcohol sales. These chapters were adopted over time, and separate and inconsistent appeal processes were developed. The primary objective of the proposed amendments are to establish best practices in governance, improve organizational efficiency, and ensure consistency across Title V by creating a uniform appeal process for all business licenses, clarifying when a person or a firm is considered to be conducting businesses within the city, and incorporating a cleanup language throughout Chapter 5. Attachment 2 of the report outlines the proposed amendments to Title V of the Murrieta Municipal Code. The most significant changes include removal of inconsistent appeal process language throughout the chapter and the establishment of a single uniform appeal process for all businesses licenses. All appeals will follow the procedure set forth in Amendment Section 5.04.3.40. Implementation of a neutral hearing officer to oversee and decide on all business licenses appeals. Third, addition of the terms advertise, solicit, and promote throughout Chapter 5 to help clarify when a person or firm is considered to be conducting business within the city. And lastly, transfer of the administrative authority from the City Council to the business license official, who will be responsible for making the initial determination regarding the suspension and revocation of business licenses. So staff recommendation for this report is the City Council introduce and conduct the first reading of Ordinance 618-25 titled An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Murrieta, California, amending Title V of the Murrieta Municipal Code relating to business licenses. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions or hear any comments you may have.
Thank you very much. I'm going to bring it back to council members for questions, and I have Council Member Stone. You have the mic.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Javier, under massage stores, massage parlors, there's an item 6 that says separate bathing facilities, saunas, steam, hot vapor rooms will be provided for male and female patrons. My question to you is, or actually, I'm going to refer this to our city attorney. With regards to gender identity, as the state law says that a person that identifies as a male or a female, with regards to the law of using a bathroom, that somebody can, if they, however they identify, the law protects them to use whatever bathroom that they choose. Is that correct?
Yes.
And with regards to that, with regards to bathing facilities, saunas, steam, vapor rooms, does that law apply to that as well?
Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you, Madam City Attorney. That concludes my questions, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Move on to Councilmember DeForest.
I just have a question. I think that the uniform appeals process, it provides a lot of transparency, and that I like the fact that it's uniform across all business licenses. But the one question I have is, who will be the officer that will be the oversight officer? And then will there be the appeals process that then will go where?
So for our code, the business license official reference to the director of finance, myself. So in terms of suspension or revocation falls under my authority, if council approves that. And certainly in appeal process, we'll go to an independent hearing officer.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that.
Are you in the queue?
Yeah.
Councilmember Lavelle.
So does that mean you will be Officer Carcamo from now on?
I need a badge for that.
Did you hear that? He needs a badge. No badges, no badges.
Okay.
Seeing no other requests from council to speak, Madam City Clerk, are there any public comments regarding this item?
Seeing none.
Thank you. Council members, comments and discussion? Any further comment or discussion? Seeing none, I'd like to call for a motion and a second. And there it is. We have a motion by Councilmember DeForest and a second by Councilmember Holliday. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote.
Motion carries unanimously 5-0 for introduction of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Murrieta amending Title V of the Murrieta Municipal Code relating to the business licenses.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to discussion item number 13, award a construction contract for Murrieta Hot Springs Road and Alta Murrieta Drive intersection project CIP number 13027. Hi, staff. May we please have a report?
Good evening, Mayor Warren.
Good evening.
Council members, pleased to be here tonight. We're for another great project. Here we're to talk about Murrieta Hot Springs Road and Alta Murrieta intersection project. Of course, we all lovingly refer to this as the turn pocket, which I think we're all aware of. This is our busiest intersection in town by far, and this is a project that is intended to help reduce congestion in that intersection. It is challenged in the fact that it's our busiest intersection in town, in the sense that it's going to be a difficult construction period. It's going to take time to do. All that work has to be done at night, and it's going to be expensive. So I'm kind of bracing you for a little bit of that. I have Mr. James Ozoff here, who's a senior engineer in our capital division. He's going to give you some of the salient details. I think he said he wanted to be part of the dunk tank when that comes up next. Oh, you didn't say that?
I didn't say
We can make that happen, I'm sure.
All right. Anyway, with that, James is going to give you a presentation tonight, and then we'll be available for questions.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Mr. Hitch. I appreciate being here. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council, and City staff. I am pleased to have the opportunity to provide you with a brief presentation for the construction contract award for the Murrieta Hot Springs Road and Alta Murrieta Drive intersection project, CIP 13027. Get this clicker. Sorry, thank you. Some background on the project. The project will construct a designated right turn project for eastbound traffic on Murrieta Hot Springs Road, turning into Murrieta Plaza. The purpose of this improvement is to alleviate traffic congestion in the eastbound through lanes caused by motorists stacking up in the number 3 through lane that are planning to turn right and enter Murrieta Plaza. We'll also be constructing a 2-foot wide raised center median to prevent left turn movements to and from the development on the north side of Murrieta Hot Springs Road for traffic safety purposes. Other improvements include cold milling and repaving the existing asphalt and installing new striping, a traffic signal modification on the southwest corner, installation of ADA compliant curb ramps and sidewalks, and relocation of EMWD's existing underground pressure reducing station. Due to the complexity of this work, we felt it would be best to do the entire project at night between the hours of 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. And we have a construction schedule that will last approximately 3 months. On this slide, you can see an overall vicinity map. At the top of the slide is the intersection of Murrieta Hot Springs Road and Alta Murrieta Drive, which feeds into Murrieta Plaza. At the very bottom is Sam's Club. The limits of work are from the I-215 on and off ramps to approximately 300 feet east of the Alta Murrieta Drive intersection, with the improvements beginning just east of Caltrans right-of-way at the 215 off-ramp. Moving on to funding sources. Currently, CIP 13027 has about $500,000 available in gas tax funds, and an additional appropriation of $1,925,000 of unassigned Measure A funds will be allocated into the project in order to provide enough funding to complete it. Bid results, we advertised the project for 4 weeks. Bids opened recently on February 5th. A total of 4 bids were received, and the bids ranged from just over $2 million to just under $3 million. The low bid submitted was by LC Paving and Sealing in the amount of $2,035,951. We found the bids to be consistent with current market conditions. No bid protests were received. With that, comes to my recommendation that we award the construction contract for the Murrieta Hot Springs Road and Alta Murrieta Drive intersection project, CIP 13027, to LC Paving and Sealing Incorporated in the amount of $2,035,951. Authorize a 15% construction contingency of $305,392.65. Authorize the city engineer to approve contract change orders not to exceed 15% of the contract amount, and amend the CIP budget for fiscal year 24-25 and establish appropriation of $1,925,000 using unassigned fund balance from the Measure A fund to CIP 13027. With that, that concludes my presentation. Myself and Mr. Hitch are here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. I think we're all trying to get some oxygen to ourselves that's one expensive pocket lane. I'll bring it back to council for discussion, and Mayor Pro Tem Lavelle.
Thank you. Much needed improvement in an area that seems almost unobtainable when you certain hours of the day. I didn't think it would be needed, but is there language when awarding these contracts to prevent any ghetto-ness of sealing and new asphalt?
Oh. Oh. That's not an engineering term, okay. I don't think. At least I don't remember seeing that in my textbooks. The work that will be done on here actually will be overlay work. It won't be slurry seal, if that's kind of what you're maybe referring to. I think associated with that, all of this would just be traditional asphalt overlay work that would be completed along with the project.
Yeah. So, this company we picked, they're very reputable and
they
do great work, I assume.
So LC Paving, you guys recently awarded a contract to them just, I think at the last council meeting, I believe. They are doing our pedestrian safety enhancement project. They've done various of those projects throughout the year, and we're very satisfied with the work that they've performed.
Well, thank you for the presentation. I look forward to a very beautiful road over in that area and much improved traffic flow.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Lavelle. I think, Councilmember Holliday?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's 300 feet, right?
340 feet.
340 feet.
Right turn pocket, yes.
It's about $7,500 a foot.
Yes, we recognize it's pretty expensive.
Yeah, that's.
We can elaborate on why we think it's pricey.
Sure.
Well, while inflation continues to decline, we're still seeing construction costs continue to rise. Secondly, Murrieta Hot Springs Road is our busiest street in town, and the Alta Murrieta Drive intersection happens to be our busiest intersection in town. So as a result, we stipulated that the work has to be done at night. Night work drives up the cost, essentially because this requires asphalt and concrete plants to be open at late hours of the night and early hours in the morning. It's just, they're able to charge a premium for this work. And lastly, the complexity of the project, and the economy of scale, or I should say, or lack thereof. There's many items of work to do, but none have economy of scale where savings could be realized. There's 85 bid items on this project, and there's just a lot of little things and lots of work to do. So.
I understand. It's unfortunate.
One other element I would point out is this is actually the second time we bid the project. The first time we bid the project, we only got one bidder. And what was the price the first time?
That was $3 million.
Yeah, it came in at $3 million the first time we bid it.
So we saved $1 million.
We rejected that bid and we rebid the project and at a different time, hoping we would get.
That's new math. That's new math. You go on, things go on sale, you save money.
So we have been very concerned about the price that's here. It is shocking to see that. There's not really a whole lot you can say other than, as he just described, it's a lot of really small items that have to be done.
And we're not buying any right-of-way.
No.
No, we already have the right-of-way.
Correct.
We're just putting the facilities around. I know the pressure-reducing station is costly that we have to pay for. I read that in the staff report. Cost of oil is way down, which is what asphalt is. You would think that would have helped, but anyhow. I wanted to talk about the raised median. Where is that going?
Right in the middle, between the.
Is it going right next to the turn lane?
Separate eastbound and westbound.
But which lane is it going in?
It'll separate eastbound and westbound traffic, right where the existing painted striping is now.
Oh, so this is in the middle of the road. It has nothing to do with this right-hand turn lane.
Basically in front of the Sizzler. If you think of where the Sizzler is located.
Yeah.
Right now there's dot bots in the middle of the road and we're placing curbed median there.
So it has nothing to do with its right-hand turn lane. It's just something we're adding into this project.
That's correct.
That's correct.
It's a safety feature.
I was trying to figure out how are we putting a raised median in a right-hand turn pocket? It's like, makes no sense to me. So it's just an additional thing that's part of this project, nothing to do with the right-hand turn lane.
It seemed like an appropriate time to install that feature. It's not a large cost. Right. At least we don't think. Well, apparently it is a large cost, but.
Well, concrete's what, $200 a yard these days?
Yeah, it's getting expensive.
Prevailing wage, probably $250. Yeah, no. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you. Center median, center of the road, I don't know. It seemed common sense to me. I have a couple questions. Question number one, when you said you're going to have a modification on the traffic signal, are you going to have a dedicated right turn arrow going into the center to keep that pocket from backing up? Or is that what you meant by that traffic signal?
The traffic signal has to be relocated.
Oh, so we don't get that extra little arrow for this money?
I'd have to refer to the traffic signal plan to answer that question.
I was just curious.
It just has to be relocated due to the widening. We're pushing the road about 14 feet to the south.
Okay.
So we have to relocate the traffic signal. We have purchased that traffic signal. It's in our city yard, ready to go.
Okay. And when they do this work at night, do you know how many lanes are going to close? Are they going to close 2 lanes from the right to the left, or just, do you know what they're going to do?
Yes, we have a detailed traffic control plan with 4 phases, and we plan to close 1 lane.
Okay.
So out of 3, we'll take 1.
Okay. Just so the public knows what's coming. I love the fact that it's only going to take 3 months. This is so needed, and I know this is going to alleviate traffic flowing through Hot Springs, is what we need so desperately. So thank you very much. At this time, do we have any further comments from council? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, are there any public comments regarding this item?
Seeing none.
Thank you. I'll bring it back for discussion. Any further discussion? At this time, I'd like to call for a motion and a second, which I already have. We have a motion by Councilmember Stone and a second by Councilmember DeForest. Any further discussion? Please vote. There it is.
Motion carries unanimously, 5-0.
Thank you very much. Good luck. Let's get this going. At this time, we're at the reconsideration. Madam City Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Any council member who voted on the prevailing side of the original motion may move a reconsideration to consider new information or correct inadvertent errors on a non-public hearing item at the same or the next meeting. At this time, are there any requests from the City Council for reconsideration? Seeing none, Madam Mayor.
I'm sorry, I got interrupted by my Mayor Pro Tem here.
Shiny.
Seeing no reconsiderations, Madam Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem Lavelle.
I see none.
That's correct.
Thank you. We'll move on. Council members request to add or withdraw items to the future agendas. Now is the time for council members to request or add or withdraw items to future agendas. There will be no discussion on the request. A brief explanation of the request may be given. The merit of the item being requested may not be discussed or debated. Are there any requests from my colleagues at this time? Seeing none, we are going to, with no further business, we are now going to adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everybody. Have a safe evening, travels home. We'll see you soon, and happy Easter to all.